morning to Honourable Tsotetsi and Honourable Samantha Gray-Murray. We want to welcome you to this portfolio committee. We know that you bring a wealth of knowledge, experience, and we look forward to the insights and wisdom that you will bring to this portfolio committee. I don't know if you want to switch on your camera and greet us if you're able to. I know you are from the Eastern Cape and weather there is not great. So if you're able to, you can greet the portfolio committee. I also want to ask the same of Honourable Jai, if she's able to.
Good morning, Chair, and it's such a privilege to be here. And I'm looking forward to being officially ATC'd on, but I'm very excited to be part of this committee. And it is freezing cold in the Eastern Cape. We've had snow all around us, so it's lovely to be warmly welcomed. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to being part of your team.
Thank you very much, Honourable Gray-Murray. We really do look forward to working with you. Honourable Jai, if I've got your surname correctly, you can also switch on your camera and greet us. If you are able to. You're not able to. Okay. Colleagues, I want to start by welcoming all of you. I wish to welcome our support team, all South Africans that are following us on the various media platforms. We just commemorated Women's Day on Sunday. I think Women's Day is a very important day for this portfolio committee because it is a stark reminder that we have to do more as a country and indeed Parliament and this portfolio committee to ensure that we achieve meaningful gender equality. And one of the bodies that work with us in terms of that goal, of course, is the Commission for Gender Equality. They are appearing before us this morning to give us their quarterly report, and we look forward to engaging with them. However, we did note the non-submission of the correct financials, and we do need to get an explanation of that. Once we get to the agenda, I will formally also read into the record the letter that was sent to us about the appointment of a new deputy chairperson who will be the acting chairperson this morning. So we will also warmly welcome you, Commissioner, once we get to that point. But colleagues, I want to also say that unfortunately I've taken note that the matters about the internal squabbles at the CGE between commissioners have taken another very dangerous turn, not dangerous, but an unfortunate turn of events in that complaints have now been sent about commissioners against one another to the president. And in fact, the matters are also now, I believe, before court. So I thought it prudent this morning, we will adopt our agenda and deal with our apologies, but that we also get an impression from the Office of the Speaker on how they would like us to deal with these matters going forward now that it's before the courts. I had also noted during the interview process that there was unfortunately a very lengthy complaint against me personally as well, which was sent, and of course it was sent to all chief whips of all political parties. It was shared to the Speaker, the Office of the House Chairperson, to the President of my party, and even to Corruption Watch. And I felt that letter in many ways had bordered on defamation against my character, but I will see how I deal with that going forward. So also good morning to Dr. Tembe, if he has joined us. Yolanda, I think we'll deal with the apologies and then we will run in that manner. We will go to Dr. Tembe after we've adopted our agenda and dealt with our apologies, and then we will introduce the new Deputy Chairperson of the CGE, who will be the acting chairperson today, before we take the presentations. Over to you, Masili.
Good morning, Chairperson. In terms of apologies, I've only received apologies from Honorable Polwane Biko and Honorable Fisani that they might be in and out of the meeting because of network issues due to severe weather in their provinces, Chairperson. That's the only apologies that I have received. And then in front of us, we have the draft agenda, Chairperson. I'm not sure if you want me to go through the agenda, Chair.
Yes, please, Ms. Silly. And then
Okay,
we'll
Chairperson. We have the opening and welcome, introduction of the new CGE Deputy Chairperson, also acting as the Chairperson. We will then followed by the briefing by the CGE on the first quarterly report and briefing by the ARC on the first quarterly report, and then discussions on the above presentations. And then we will try to adopt minutes and reports from the previous meeting that we didn't adopt, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silly. I also would like to greet Honorable Adams. I've seen Honorable Bungane that have joined us. I would also like to, of course, welcome the Office of the Deputy Minister in the form of Mr. Koza. We will deal with the welcome to the Commission for Gender Equality once we get to that item. Colleagues, before you is the agenda for this morning, and we have taken note of the weather issues, colleagues. Please do stay safe. In front of us is the agenda for this morning. Please may I take a mover and a seconder of our agenda. Honorable Pulwane, followed by Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Good morning, Chair, honorable members, our official, the CGE, everyone in the platform. Chair, I move for the adoption of the agenda for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pulwane. Honorable Chauke Adonis.
You're not unmuted. Good morning, Chair, and all honorable members on the platform and everyone who has joined us and all the commissioners. I hereby second the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you so much. We've also got a notification that the Office of the Minister is present. So also welcome to the Office of the Honourable Minister. Thank you for your adoption of the agenda, colleagues. Thank you for dealing with the apologies, Ms. Silly. Please may I then check if Dr. Tembe is here. I don't see him. Okay. Maybe Dr. Tembe will then come in at the end. But colleagues, as I've said, firstly, we wish to welcome the delegation of the CGE this morning. I have seen the commissioners present. I have also seen the presence of the CEO. And maybe I would just like to take this opportunity then to read a letter that was sent to me on the 3rd of August. It was actually penned to yourself as a committee, and I would like to read it. It says, appointment of the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission for Gender Equality. It says, Chairperson, the above matter refers, the Commission formally notifies the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities that Commissioner Nomvungo has been elected as the Deputy Chairperson of the Commission in terms of Section 9A of the Commission for Gender Equality Act 1996. And by virtue of this election, he assumes the role of acting chairperson of the Commission in terms of Section 9B of the CGE Act. The election follows the implementation of the judgment of the Constitutional Court concerning the appointment of certain commissioners. In compliance with the court's order, the commissioners whose appointments were declared unlawful vacated office with effect from 1 August 2026. In accordance with the governance arrangements of the Commission, the Deputy Chairperson will serve as the acting chairperson pending the appointment of a substantive chairperson through the prescribed constitutional and legislative processes. The Commission remains fully committed to discharging its constitutional obligations under Section 187 of the Constitution and will continue to provide the oversight, promote, protect, monitor, and evaluate gender equality without interruption. The Commission respectfully requests the Portfolio Committee to note the governance development and assures the Committee of its continued cooperation during this transitional period. So it gives me then great pleasure this morning, colleagues, to ask Commissioner Mvungo to open his camera to introduce himself. And we do wish you all the best as you assume this leadership responsibilities, Commissioner. We have taken note of the latest developments, as I've said, about the internal operations of the Commission. And as a portfolio committee, we remain very concerned about the working relationships at the Commission and hope that you will be able to steer this committee or the Commission into a greater future and that we will be able to work well together. So I wish to then hand over to you to introduce yourself and to lead your team. All the best.
Thank you so much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, members, honorable members, the Office of the Deputy Minister and the Minister, the CEO and Secretariat. I've seen the team, CFO is here, and I've just seen our ARC Chairperson has just also joined the meeting, our commissioners. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Chairperson, and we are grateful to be invited today to give a full account of the work that has been done by the Commission. And thank you for the warm welcome once again. Chairperson, today we appear before you to give a full account, as I've stated, to give a full account of the work that has been done or performed by the Commission in the during quarter one of the financial year 2026-2027. And we fully understand, as this cohort, your mandate to provide an oversight on the work that is done by this institution, and also fully aware that this commission has been entrusted with the mammoth task to perform its constitutional mandate without fear and favor and prejudice. I see a hand up, Chairperson. I'm not sure if I must stop or continue.
No. I think it's a legacy and acting chairperson, so please proceed.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairperson. And so this platform gives us an opportunity to showcase the progress made in terms of our annual performance plan, which has been approved by this committee, and the progress, therefore, that has been implemented throughout this financial year, this quarter of this financial year. Chairperson, I must also indicate that we appear before you having completed the audit of 2025-2026, which has been tremendous, which has shown tremendous improvement in the Commission. And I do also take note of your opening remarks in terms of the working relations with amongst commissioners. And I do give a full commitment that I will do my best, and in fact, we'll do our best as a team to provide leadership, because we are all going to provide a collective leadership as the Commission. And so, Chairperson, we have achieved and overachieved in some areas of our annual performance plan during this quarter, and you will see as the CEO will be taking us through. And just to say, Chairperson, throughout all our reports, you will note that funding remains a great concern for CGE to really move beyond frontiers of where we are, having achieved so much in terms of implementing the impact throughout the country. But also funding limits us to implement fully our business model, having been presented and approved by this portfolio committee. So, Chairperson, we are also noting that we, as commissioners, were limited in terms of providing oversight in provinces, and that role, there are commissioners who have taken an added responsibility in terms of provincial work. and at the committee level. There's just 3 provinces that have been affected: Eastern Cape, Limpopo, and Gauteng. And with that being said, commissioners have taken these provinces as their responsibilities. We are also, Chairperson, appearing before this portfolio committee, having published having invited the members of the public, civil society organization, academias, and interested parties to an inquiry that is led by a joint inquiry that is led by 3 Chapter 9 institutions: CGE, South African Human Rights Commission, and CRL. And with the interest that has been shown by the public, Chairperson, and the request to extend that call for inputs, we have agreed to extend with that with those requests. Chairperson, we also want to appreciate that as we appear before this portfolio committee, we also recently received a judgment between the former Commissioner Botha and the Commission, and that judgment, which has clearly outlined that commissioners are actually not employees of the Chapter 9 institution, and we will be providing the committee if they need to read more on that. But also within in-house, we will be beginning to amend our handbook and our policies so that they speak to the judgment. So, Chairperson, with those few words, we want to appreciate being here, being invited here. I also note that there were limitations in terms of our presentation. I just want to check with the team that financials were not submitted, unless I misunderstood you at the beginning, Chairperson. But in terms of our plenary that was convened on the 30th to the 31st of July, we have received all the documents, which I am under the impression that they have been forwarded to your good selves. Can I double check that with you, Chairperson, if you have received all the documents before we proceed?
We received all the documents that we required only after we had requested we gave you a deadline, which you couldn't make because of the plenary. Then you had to submit on 5 August. Then, unfortunately, old financials were sent to us and the information on the leases were not sent. And then eventually that information did reach us on Friday. But having, of course, had a public holiday and the events around Women's Day, we would just want to, of course, improve on that going forward, Deputy Chair.
Okay, I do want to tender my sincere apology on behalf of the Commission, Chairperson, that the mistake has been, if the mistake has been on our side, that it will not be the case going forward, and will ensure due diligence before these reports are sent to your good selves. Having said that, Chairperson, I would like to invite the CEO to lead us in terms of our presentation and reports today. Thank you so much. Chairperson, CEO, over to you.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson, and good morning to the Chairperson of the committee, honorable members, as well as the commissioners and colleagues that are joining from the Commission side. Chairperson of the committee, may I ask guidance in terms of the time that you're giving me to present, so that I can then just focus on the key issues and save time for the CFO as well?
How much time do you need, CEO?
You know, I'll go forever, Chairperson. There's just so much to share. But I think with me, I can try to do this within 30 minutes if it's allowed, if not less.
Okay, let's try for less, but please proceed. You've got your 30 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson and honorable members, it is absolutely a pleasure to come back to the committee to present our progress report in terms of implementing the annual performance plan for 2026-2027. However, before I start with the presentation, I would like to foreground the progress made in the Q1 on the successes that we have made in 2025-2026 as per the concept note and guiding note that you have provided us. Chairperson, we come from 2025-2026 with an outcome that indicates the improvement of the Commission in terms of attaining its own performance targets, which is quite an improvement looking at the fact that, Chair, 3 years ago, we were struggling to even meet half of the targets that we were setting for ourselves. We were at some point at 48%, and having engaged with the Auditor General in 2025-2026, we've agreed that the outcome is now at 98%, which is something that we are quite happy about. But it's not something that, Chair, we are just presenting the statistics. The statistics are a reflection of the changes and the deliberate intention that we are making as the Commission to meaningfully change the lives of South Africans. And how do we do that, Chair? And that's why the presentation is not so much on the activities that we have done, but how these activities has really changed the lived experiences of vulnerable groups in South Africa. And we've taken a conscious decision, Chair, when you have posed a question on how are we really doing that. And we have strategically engaged, firstly, the Minister of Higher Education, primarily because during Q1, of course, we know that it was a youth month, but for us, we knew that it meant that a lot of focus must also be towards the youth around the period in question. But we had met with the Minister of Higher Education in this regard. I'll ask the floor, don't move the slides just for now, just pause, still my opening statements. We have met with the Minister of Higher Education, Chair, because we have done multiple reports on higher education, the TVET sector, where we have found a number of challenges. And our challenge was that we are seeing a slow pace of the implementation of our recommendation. So strategically, we met with the Minister of Higher Education, where we presented various reports that we have commissioned as an institution for implementation of the recommendation. And the minister agreed with us, Chair, particularly on the handling of sexual harassment cases and largely GBV that is occurring on campuses, to work with the commission to have an action plan within which specific deliverables will be mentioned in terms of achieving and complying with the recommendations of the Commission for Gender Equality. And one of those, Chair, we have called in our report that there should be a standardization framework, a standardized framework in terms of how sexual harassment matters are handled at campus level. We have also recommended the need to have gender modules. We know that one of the universities, I think is UKZN, that has already introduced that module. We believe that we need to bring this aspect across all universities for standardization. And the minister has agreed with us by extension, Chair, to now review the frameworks that is there to deal with GBV, because in the current form, Chair, we found that the implementation of the framework that deals with GBV is fraught with many difficulties. Firstly, just the framework itself, but those that are tasked with implementing the framework are not equipped to really implement it. And as such, we see a number of complaints coming out of higher education sector from students pertaining to continuous violation of their rights because of sexual harassment. So a clear action plan of 3 months has been agreed with the Minister of Higher Education, which we will look to see how best we can improve. And by so doing, Chair, we'll be addressing a variety of issues in higher education. We have further met with the National Director of Public Prosecution, Advocate Motibi, to discuss issues pertaining to Section 56, Chair, that allows accused persons to use as a defense, how a child or a person appears. The section in question basically says if a person believes that they were misled by how a child looked or how their body structure looked, they can use that as a defense to avoid prosecution. And we've raised this issue with the NPA. Yes, it's currently a legislation which we have agreed in principle that if it were to be addressed, it will require a legislative reform. And we've agreed that we need to go back to the legislation and the history behind the inclusion of such a section, because in its current form, we hold a view that it is discriminating unfairly towards girl children in this regard, because it seems to say this is how a child should look like. So if you associate yourself or your body structure looks in a particular way, that is a prejudice on its own. So it's a view that we've shared with the NPA, and they've agreed in principle that if we want to address this, it will require a legislative reform. And in 2025, Chair, 2026, we still say that we are happy that the laboratory was established in KZN just to deal with the backlog. And our call is still there, Chair, that we need to have this across all provinces. And we're also happy with the implementation in Mpumalanga with the SAPS vehicles, because we've realized that one of the reasons, particularly in Mpumalanga, that leads to matters not being finalized is because the vehicles are not there. You have one investigating officer allocated too many dockets, and they don't have sufficient capacity or vehicles to attend to that. So we're quite happy with that. Chair, we are still having challenges with the South African Police Service in the main, where we are not getting joy and cooperation when there are matters that are reported to us. We have resolved that we will have a strategic engagement with the Minister of Police to address all these areas that we've identified in terms of how matters are handled before the South African Police Service. But of course, this will also form part of the inquiry session that we are holding with our sister organization pertaining to this. We were quite happy, Chair, to also see that the Northwest Provincial Legislature has requested us to do an investigation on the poor representation of women in leadership position in the province, particularly heads of department. We were able to conduct an investigation, and we provided a report there. And the significance of this, Chair, is that now we are moving away from just only engaging yourselves as the National Assembly, but we're also seeing the need that the provincial legislatures are now raising for us to be more visible in provinces and engage with them accordingly in terms of creating an enabling environment and holding people accountable where there is a regression in terms of women's representation in leadership. We have used our year and quarter, Chair, to also reflect on men's mental health, which is a critical component that we are seeing in terms of our work. So we've held several engagements to deal with this aspect around men's mental health, as well as gender equality, as well as the youth. And what we have seen, especially in provinces, was now based on our gender mainstreaming sessions and gender and development sessions with different stakeholders. An increase on cases was observed by the South African Police Service, particularly referral by educators where children are abused or violated. And we say, Chair, this is squarely because of the gender mainstreaming sessions that we were holding with DSDs, schools, circuits, as well as the Department of Education. As far as the justice cluster, we have been deliberate to also focus on this sector. And what came out clearly was the delays in child maintenance matters, as well as limited intermediaries to finalize matters that pertained to children in this regard. We have also taken steps, Chair, to engage the agricultural sector, where, because this is the year of the women farmer, we strategically focus on rural areas that deals with challenges that women farmers experience. And we've held sessions where we've connected women farmers with the Agricultural Research Council to ensure capacity building opportunities. We've also held sessions with the Z22 sessions as a Z22 company, various gender mainstreaming sessions, just to make sure that we don't leave women farmers behind during this critical period. And of course, Chair, one of the initiatives that we'll be working very closely with the CRL Rights Commission is the current challenge we see with the death of initiates during this period, and we'll be working very closely with the CRL Rights Commission. And we're quite happy to see that in the Free State, Chair, with the maintenance matters, we managed to secure at least 4 maintenance payout matters that were delayed for a period of 4 years. we were able to intervene during the financial year 2025-2026, and further in terms of our mandate concluded various mediation processes. And strategically, lastly, Chair, we then held a meeting with the disaster management head following the pronouncement of GBV as a national disaster, but also because of the gender challenges that we've seen in terms of disaster management in KZN, we've agreed that there is a need to revisit and revise the current disaster management framework, because we've highlighted how there is lack of integrated coordination from the Commission for Gender Equality. And it was quite a progressive meeting, which we believe that it will address the current challenges that we see with the GBV being declared as a national disaster, but also the lack of coordinated process with dealing with disaster due to floods that are happening often in provinces such as KZN. With that being said, Chair, I would then like to then present the report to indicate that during the financial year 2025-2026, we noted the criticism that we've got from the Auditor General, particularly on complaints handling. And we accept, Chairperson, I think even your councils at some point, you have raised this issue particularly to our SMART indicator in terms of complaints, inquiries, which the AG has actually highlighted that we need to separate the inquiries away from the complaints, because in the current APP, it creates a confusion in terms of how inquiries are handled versus how they ultimately become complaints. So we will be meeting with the commissioners to then amend the current APP to deal with inquiries versus the complaints. There is a need for us, of course, Chair, to strengthen our internal controls in that regard, to ensure that we are able to produce credible investigation reports that are able to influence, policy change or influence or change the lives of those that we established to serve. In that regard, Chair, we are saying, whilst we celebrate the 98%, the internal controls need to be addressed accordingly. The Auditor General has also raised concerns around irregular expenditures that we have not implemented consequence management, and I've basically requested the AG that let them be clear in terms of the current report that it is not the irregular expenditure for 2025-2026, but it is those that date back to 2019-2020. Of course, as the current management, we have gone back as 2020-2021 to deal with the irregular expenditures of that time. But however, AG felt that there were those that were still there in 2019-2020 that we did not write off or deal with accurately. And we will focus in 2026-2027 to deal with those in 2019-2020 and any that is left between from 2019-2020 going back to 2011-2012, if there are still any. Because our view, Chair, is that these are historical in nature, and we managed to go back to the annual reports at the time to just understand how these matters were dealt with. And unfortunately, we could not find reports that these were dealt with. So it is from that premise that the AG says consequence management was not effected in 2019-2020. And we hold a view that, yes, it is correct in that regard. However, in our approach, we will do our level best to make sure that we write off, because we still have, Chair, the Prescription Act that essentially bars us, from taking legal action to claim monies that have prescribed in terms of the Prescription Act, which is a hurdle that we see. And we hope we'll find each other with the National Treasury when we present this argument. But what we are happy about is that 3 years ago, we were presenting fruitless and wasteful expenditure that was within millions. But now we're talking, which was about 1.4 million, 1.5 million 3 years ago. What we are currently having is far less than 20,000, as I understand, of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which says, Chair, the intentional commitment is there by management and commissioners to ensure proper planning and reduce fruitless as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure. We can then move to the next slide, Flo. And what you will highlight, Chair, is you'll see is that the presentation was largely talking to areas of concern, that how is the CGE's responsibilities and APP linked to the SONA. I've explained that in terms of the inquiry, as well as the interventions that we were able to make with the National Prosecuting Authority, as well as the Minister of Higher Education. Move to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I just need that table flow. Yes, thank you. So this table, Chair, now indicates the success of 2026 quarter one, which when we look at, we had targets of outcome 1, outcome 2, as well as outcome 3. We had 4 targets that were planned for outcome 1, which we were able to achieve. And then we had target of 6 for Q1 as far as public education information unit is concerned. We were able to achieve that as well. And then in terms of research, we had a target of 4, which I will just go in detail about. But in principle, we were able to achieve that, as well as outcome 4, which we were able to have 12 targets, and we were able to do that. And in more detail, Chair, we've submitted a report that now details these are these targets and what is it that we have done. So if we look at the outcome 1, which is submissions on legislation as well as policies, we have made submissions into the regulations and the management of learner pregnancy in schools. We've made submissions to protected disclosure bill, the draft national rail master plan, the draft electoral matters amendment bill, the draft township rural economy policy, as well as the Engineering Council of Africa rules, management, and proper conduct. And then as highlighted in terms of 1.2 of our strategic engagement, that was done with the Minister of Higher Education. Our APP chair says, in terms of provincial investigations, we don't have to do anything in Q1. However, we spent the quarter one conceptualizing the provincial investigations that will focus on transformation in the legislative sector, where provincial legislators will be sampled to look at policy framework and creating enabling environment as well. And we will complement that with the research study also that will also involve a survey to involve staff members within the legislative sector to look at challenges that they experience as employees, also to focus on the sector to ensure that it aligns with the legislative prescripts, particularly to advance and promote gender equality. So during Q2, we will now be holding provincial investigations on the legislative sector. We have written to Parliament equally, Chair, to just request a meeting to present one of our this particular investigation, which our research department will be focusing on, so that we are able to conclude. We have done our target for complaints handling and inquiries is 100. We were able to achieve 155. However, as indicated, Chair, we will be amending the APP following the AG's report that there is a need to separate inquiries away from complaints. And one of the reasons why inquiries remain critical, Chair, is that if we completely remove them within our framework, it means we will not be able to accommodate any person who comes to the commission to seek assistance. Because what happens normally is that you'll get a call where somebody has listened to a particular matter on radio and they just want to inquire. And you'll find that in handling that inquiry, that matter is not really falling within the mandate of the commission. We have to refer accordingly. We differ with AG to say it shouldn't be there at all, because looking at the nature of our work, it essentially means we will now close doors for those that just need access to justice. And access to justice, in our view, is not just only in matters that pertain to the commission, but directing people to the right institutions where they will be assisted accordingly. Chair, we had a target of 20 gender mainstreaming information sessions. We see a positive variance there. And one thing that I can talk about outcome 2 pertaining to these indicators is that we have overachieved. And why we have overachieved, Chair, is because we are gradually seeing the stakeholders, departments, the private sector that are now coming back to the Commission to seek assistance in terms of the gender mainstreaming sessions, because their policies are gender blind and therefore lead to matters that are before them not being properly handled. So many institutions are now coming back to request the Commission to take them through the gender mainstreaming process as well as the gender and development program, so that they are able to self-diagnose some of the challenges that they see within the workplace, and that we see it as a huge impact from our end. And one of those, Chair, would be the Office of the Premier in KZN, that has really taken advantage of these services and to ensure that they are able to address their policy limitations. So the gender audit tool remains one of the critical instruments, Chair, that we use to provide feedback to institutions, and we are seeing them utilizing this in numbers. And of course, we are seeing also an increase in terms of our community radio stations, where now the listenership is also increasing based on the discourse that we are having in provinces, which is quite important. We have met our target as far as the public education information outreach initiatives, which was 31 for the quarter, and we were able to achieve 47. And this, Chair, was focusing largely on youth, traditional leaders, as well and as main mental health as highlighted, but also issues pertaining to LGBTI across provinces were also highlighted to various communities. And we are quite happy that when we engage on community outreach sessions, now there is an improved understanding of gender equality rights, not only by the departments, but also communities at large. Now they understand, they are more informed and aligned with what is amounting to discriminatory practice and what is not. So from our view, we then see the change of attitude and the reporting of cases and knowing exactly where to report matters as an indication that we are gradually making impact in terms of our public education and information unit. As indicated, we are having a gender and development program, which is training of the trainer program. We had a target of 11 and we ended up doing 23 of that. And this is one of those that I'm highlighting, that is as a result of numerous requests that now institutions are coming to the Commission to request similar training and sensitization so that they can amend their policies accordingly. We had a target of 27 community communication content initiatives. We did 81 of those, which led to a positive variance of 54 during quarter one, 2026, 2027. And this again, Chair, it talks to the visibility that we are seeing across the provinces and the commitment that institutions are demonstrating towards the implementation of gender equality policies as well as practices. We had a target of 10 critical stakeholder engagements, and we did 16 of those, which took place in different provinces during the quarter. KZN, Gauteng, Northwest, Limpopo, Western Cape, Northern Cape, as well as the Eastern Cape, which we were able to then conclude. In terms of our outcome 3, we had developed research agendas with commissioners in this regard. So during the financial year 2026-2027, we'll be focusing on gender and disability, men's health, gender and migration, menstrual poverty, early child development and gender equality, as well as election monitoring because of the local government elections that are taking later this financial year. So we'll be monitoring those elections and we'll produce a report to this effect. What we are happy about is that during the quarter, we spent a lot of time to just sensitize different duty bearers around our elections report, including the portfolio committee. I think it is Women Multi-Party Caucus, where we presented on 2 occasions our report pertaining to the challenges that we see with the current women's representation and issues pertaining to elections in South Africa. During Q1, as far as our collaboration, we are collaborating with the European Union, particularly on gendered corruption, which will be an area that is new for us, but it will also providing at least a report that we can now speak with confidence when we engage. So we'll be focusing on gendered corruption in that regard, and we'll be working again with the Zimbabwe Gender Commission just to focus on issues pertaining to climate change. We'll be focusing on Maputo Protocol as an international instrument, as the committee is aware that we have to monitor the implementation of regional as well as international instrument. We have, as indicated, Chair, presented also to the portfolio committee on labor, pertaining to challenges pertaining to men's masculinity and gangs. We've also presented the report on women in the South African economy, which was also welcomed in the main by the portfolio committee on employment and labor. And what is critical, Chair, is that we need to look at the legislation, particularly the UIF, because it does not allow self-employed workers to contribute towards the fund. And we have highlighted some of the challenges that women in the main experience when they are, for example, pregnant. They don't have a safety net that they can utilize because they don't contribute towards the UIF. So you have women who ultimately are compromised in terms of their sexual and reproductive rights, children's rights being violated because children, at the end of the day, infants, end up being on the streets with the mothers, whereas they should be nurtured properly without any intervention. But mothers end up taking such a critical position and step because they don't have a UIF fund that they can rely on. When particularly women, when they are heavily pregnant and they go on maternity leave, inverted commas, when they come back to the sport where they are selling, you will find that their sport is no longer available amongst others, which again creates another problem. One of the challenges that mothers also highlighted was that when you are now selling tomatoes and apples, amongst other things, you tend to even lose customers when they see you having a child that has, you have to change nappies in front of them. They end up losing, some of the critical clients that they have. But they have to do that, of course, because they don't have a UIF safety net. So one of the things that we've raised with the portfolio committee is that we need to work together, Chairperson, so that we can really look at how we can review or ensure legislative reform that will ensure that there is a safety net towards mothers that are self-employed in that regard. We have the corporate strategy in terms of outcome 4, which we had a target of a progress report, and we are seeing, of course, from our staff, the increase of the ICT ticketing system, which used to be a challenge, and that is the progress that we are seeing in terms of implementing the strategy. We have also trained provincial administrators of the SAGE system so that they can start to do their own programs. Their own bookings in provinces accordingly. This is part of the change management plan to implement the business model. However, we really need more funds, as the acting chair highlighted, to fully implement the business model. In terms of our 20% expenditure, there is a 22%, there is a 2% increase over the 20 that we have set ourselves for the financial year. We will start in 2020 in this quarter to do our audit action plan to implement the audit action, the findings that were issued by the Auditor General. What we are quite happy with the report from the AG is that it demonstrated that 80% of the issues that they raised in the previous financial year were addressed. We just have to work a little bit harder as management to make sure that we address 100% of the audit findings that were raised. We are on par in terms of risk management, Chairperson. We are working very closely with the risk committee chair, who has requested us to now have what we call a risk library that will involve provinces, will involve management, as well as commissioners. So we'll have a risk library that is a living document that will be updated of contemporary risks that we are identifying at a leadership level as well as an operational level, which is quite important. One of the interventions that we made as a result of our failure of achieving 100% of our targets in 2025, 2026 pertained to HR processes. So we did not meet 100% of our targets last year because we were not able to fully fill all vacancies due to the target that we have set for ourselves of 80%. And one of the problems was because we don't have control if somebody does not accept our offer. And what we have seen largely is most candidates not accepting our offer because their view is that it is it's too little looking at industry standards and what they offer. So we don't really have a control as far as that is concerned. So in the current APP, we have now crafted the indicator differently to look at the development and the implementation of a recruitment plan, which is now something that we believe it will be easily measurable and auditable so that we are able to deal with that. We have approved the funding policy so that we can start processes to deal with our funding limitations, impact management policy, the stakeholder management policy, the relocation policy, transfer policy, as well as the acting policy were included accordingly. And in terms of our culture transformation plan, we will be introducing employee of the quota as one of the mechanisms that will improve organizational culture in the commission. And we had, as indicated, training session of administrators on Sage 100, and we are still on par in terms of achieving that target. As far as the audit is concerned, we were largely focused during Q1 on the Auditor General, external audit in that regard. So the Q1 was largely on the planning from internal audit, which they have reported their plans to the Audit and Risk Committee. We have issued 4 media communications plans, one on men's mental health as indicated, and also policy dialogues on masculinity, gangs, and the youth, the death of initiatives, as well as a national dialogue, which we are hoping to have this quarter on national teenage pregnancy. That would be my presentation. I'll then hand over to the CFO to then present the financials. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CEO. Over to you, CFO.
Good morning, everyone. Chairperson, please advise if you can see my screen.
We can, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I will start by taking you through our Q1 report that is from April to June, taking into consideration all the inputs or items that we're reflecting on the document. Our revenue for Q1 was 27.8 million. We have received it in total as it represents 25% of our annual allocation of 111 million, which is inclusive of the rental budget. Expenditure items, we have spent 24.9 million as compared to the previous financial year's period of 21.8 million. And the increase is also in comparison to make sure that we align to the CPI as well as the rental element that has come into play. Also still implementing cost containment measures, as well as ensuring that we do most of our initiatives via virtual platforms, or where it's not necessary, then we then do the travel and accommodation. These are the overspent and underspent expenditure items. As we focus more on the overspent items, the audit fees in Q1 were overspent due to the delayed invoices that were received after the 31st of May 2026. As you know, AG, we don't issue a PO, we wait for invoices to come, and we cannot project how much will they be charging us when the invoices comes through. So these invoices were processed after the 31st of May, which then were captured for the Q1. Office cleaning and maintenance overspent items due to bulk buying. Whenever the financial year starts, we'll procure the stationary grocery items just to make sure that they cover us for about 4 to 6 months, so that we don't buy every week or every month. So however, this amount will clear in the Q2 because we won't be procuring in March in Q2. We also have the depreciation element, which is a non-cash item that is not funded by our budget provision. Then on the overview part, when it comes to the income statement, you would see that other income that we've received of 187,000, which is inclusive of interest that we receive from the bank account, as well as the ETDP SITA element of the granting skills development or training funding. From Department of Women's, we've received the 27 million, which we get from Treasury via them. Expenditure items on the employee-related costs, we've spent about 16.5 million. Depreciation, 700,000. Office accommodation, 1.7 million, with general expenses of 5.9 million. In total, 24.9 million, with a surplus of 2.8 million. On the balance sheet items or statement of financial position, we look at our assets that are adding to 29.2 million as compared to our liabilities sitting at 17.2 million. Cash and cash equivalent sitting at 19.8 million, which can cover the CGE's expenses for 2.5 months if there are any delays whatsoever from any processes of receiving our income. The reduction of creditors by over 50% is mainly due to the accruals that were done at year end, then the payments were processed in Q1. Increase in other current assets, it's due to advance payments that were processed for license fees, such as Microsoft 365 license, Sage system, as well as other subscriptions. Achievements and challenges. On the achievement side of it, we have procured 5 office accommodation, which are head office, Northwest, Mpumalanga, KZN, as well as Western Cape, with the Northwest fully occupying the space with no move that was necessary because the landlord that was used by DPW was the successful one. And on the head office, we're busy with office preparation, anticipated move date of the 3rd of September, with the other offices in another report. Managing the auditors generals was part of the achievement, as we maintained our unqualified audit opinion. We nearly got the clean audit, but then we were interrupted by slight challenge of the material finding that was picked on outcome 1.4. On the challenges, part of it, limited resources that continues to be with us, as the chairperson and the CEO dealt on this item. Also, the challenge was managing the high tenant installation cost for all our procurement of lease accommodation, but we managed them quite well just to make sure that we don't spend on the devolved budget. International travel, we did not have any international trips from the 1st of April to the 30th of June. Consultants that we're using, and we are still continuing to use the IT consultants. We are paying them 75,000 per month. It is due to the interim solution that management put in place while we are waiting for the labor court matter to be resolved, so that CG can be in a position to appoint an IT manager. Internal audit, it is outsourced. We only pay about 34,000 per month. And this is just to ensure the independence of internal audit without it being compromised from past experiences. And you can vouch to the fact that we pay a minimum fee as compared to when we have an CAE in-house as well as the senior audit executive. It can be quite costly. And the newsletter services is also outsourced because we don't have internal expertise. We pay about 11 to 15,000 per month, which is also well contained. Investigations, determination tests that were done. We have presented to AG a file that was having all the documents that relate to the periods of 2019, 20, 2021, 21, 22, 2022, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25 in June during the audit, and all these files were successful or were approved by AG without any finding being raised on this one. However, then we just have to go back and clean the 2016, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19 that were reflecting in 2019, 2020 as that the management of that time conducted the investigations. However, we couldn't find any supporting documents or any report to that effect, even though CEO even tried to reach out to the former CEO and CFO to no avail. So we'll just have to do the process so that we close this gap once and for all. On the audit action plan, as at 30 June, AG was still in the process of the audit. So all the COMEPs were not yet finalized and the audit action plan was not yet compiled. We are in a process of compiling it now, since after we have received the management report and the audit report on the 30th and the 31st of July. We have about 20 or 21 findings. They have reduced slightly as compared to the previous financial year, where we had about 37 of the audit findings and we resolved 35. The remaining two ones were the leave expense finding, as well as the draft policies from different departments that management is busy dealing with them at this point in time. Thank you, Chair. I can quickly show you the additional information presentation that you wanted. That was including the lease information. We have received about 9.5 million for 26-27 financial year for the lease accommodation, and this is the breakdown of the leases. Cornhill one, we at this point in time we wait for DPW to give us the invoices because we've only signed two contracts at Northwest starting in July, which you will see the report in Q2 when we're reporting about them. And the head office, it's only starting on the 1st of October, in as much as we've signed it now, but it will be effective on the 1st of October. So for now, since we're still occupying Cornhill under DPW's management part of it, we're waiting for the invoices. They haven't processed them. However, we've provisioned for them in our financials just to make sure that the amount in questions are accommodated. So then on the Polokwane office, also waiting, Durban, Mahikeng, as well as Kimberley. But DPW has only invoiced us for Bloemfontein, Eastern Cape, and Pretoria, and these are the amounts respectively. So, and we have processed their payments accordingly for the 3 months, and we are communicating with them to say, can they still provide us with the 5 invoices so that we can clear or process the payments accordingly. And a provision of 1.2 million was made as at end of June to accommodate the 3 months in questions for the outstanding invoices, and total expense for the quarter is 1.7 million. The nature of lease agreements, Bloemfontein office, it's still with DPW, and the lease will only end in July 2027. So we haven't started with the procurement process on this one. We are planning to start early 2027. The Cape Town office, there's currently no lease agreement, as you know that we're occupying Customs House. However, we'll be moving on the 17th of August to the new offices that have been procured. And at Durban office, we're just finalizing the tenant installation cost. We have agreed on a BOQ now, revised BOQ that has reduced the TI or tenant installation cost as of Friday last week. Kimberley, it's at PEC stage. Mabato, it's finalized and sealed. And the Nelspruit office, it's also under office partitioning now. It was awarded Polokwane office, we have to do this for the 4th time now since we started the process last year, and we're still getting non-responsive bids, but we will continue until we get one. East London, it's under bid evaluation process, as well as the Pretoria office is also under bid evaluation process, and hopefully they should be going to BAC by next week so that they can be awarded. Joburg office, it's the head office that is waiting for occupation or busy with the office preparation process. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, CFO. Can we now go to the ARC presentation, or is there something else that you would like to say at this point, CEO?
Thank you, Chair. We are covered. That will be our submission, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. Can we then take the presentation of the Audit Risk Committee, please? I would like members to have ample time to engage. Good morning as well to Honourable Mkhunu and Dr. Leklape and Dr. Tembe that have joined us. Over to you, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Doc. Over to you, ARC Chairperson.
Good morning, Chair. I hope you can hear me well on your side.
We can.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the honourable members and to our leadership at the CGP, and also to our acting chairperson of plenary. As the Committee of Audit and Risk, the CTE, we are pleased for this opportunity and the invite to share our oversight work for the first quarter in the current performance year. We note that the committee is in place, is functioning. The Audit and Risk Committee is composed of 3 members who are non-staff members or involved in the work of plenary, being me and the other 2 gentlemen. We also note the support we get from the accounting officer and management, who does engage the committee and make available the necessary report that inform the agenda of the committee. We also submit, Chair, that we are afforded an opportunity to engage with plenary through the chairperson of the commissioners, where we share our observations, our recommendations on the governance structures and financial management of the CGP, and also to the accounting officer, who also participates in our work. So our committee met on the 28th of July last month to deliberate, among others, on financial management, on the recent external audit, on reports from internal audit, also on risk management from the risk committee and the ICT reports, and we also had a submission from the accounting officer on the service delivery outcomes, the performance of the organization against the sector target in the APP. Chair, if I may just start firstly with the external audit. The AG had concluded and issued their report at the end of July on the 3 aspects of our reporting responsibilities, which they had reviewed, being the annual financial statements, the report on performance against targets, and also on compliance. We welcome their submissions, their reports. They have engaged us and explained themselves fully, and we welcome that report. We note also the strength of our ability to report on financial management. We congratulate the accounting officer and the executives that in this year, again, there were no material corrections on the annual financial statement that had to be made because of the audit. So in that area of our ability to report, we are thankful for the work that the CFO and the accounting officer is doing. We also note on the AG's report around performance information, especially on the one indicator pertaining to complaints which the accounting officer has spoken to, and our inability to provide supporting evidence that match the actual results that are included in these reports. Work work is in place. The accounting officer has submitted on the initiatives to enhance that area so that we are able, on a quarterly basis, the organization is able to report credibly on the information, and that information must be supported by the actual evidence that's available to apply on the files and it's auditable. And as far as compliance is concerned, Chair, the one matter that the AGS raised was connected to the irregular expenditures, which the accounting officers also submitted that were caused or incurred in periods past. The AGS observed that and cited that the organization has not taken enough steps to implement consequence management around the irregular expenditure. So work is in place and the accounting officer will attend to that, and we will follow on in our oversight meetings to ensure that
Don't touch. Mommy's in a meeting.
sufficient,
Yes, I'm in a meeting.
Honorable Chalke Adonis, just please mute for us. Thank you.
Apologies, Chair.
No problem, no problem. My apologies, ARC Chair.
Thank you, Chair. We also note that the recent audit cycling was just completed last month, and the organization will put together an audit outcome improvement plan to deal with some of the matters that were raised in the ATSA as management report and the audit report itself. So the committee will have sight of that at the next meeting. Where we will
My apology. I don't know if it's only me, but the ACT chair is very deep. I'm struggling to hear him.
Yeah,
I don't know
Honorable
if on my side.
you are correct. ARC Chair, can you please just speak a little bit closer to the mic? We heard you in the beginning and you've become quite faint.
let's see. Am I improving?
Yes, I think you just need to get a little bit closer to your device.
Okay, thanks, Chairperson. Yes, so as I indicated, that the audit outcome improvement plan will be made available to the audit committee. We will then give inputs to the strength of the actions that will be taken to resolve some of the audit findings that were brought to the organization by the AGS during the recent audit. Also, Chair, we had submissions for Q1 from the internal audit. We have rendered our work as far as ensuring that the internal audit has a charter. We do note that there is an internal audit unit that is working, that is on the job. It has an internal audit charter that guides their work and their relationship between the organization, the accounting officer, and the ARC. They've also submitted an audit strategy on their work that informs or aligned to the 5-year plan, which is a 5-year rolling plan, which annually they review and then bring it to the committee for approval. We have also got a Q1 report on the performance information that was reported by the accounting officer. So we submit that the unit itself is working, and we are receiving reports from them. They have concluded their previous year plan. There were audits which were due in the first quarter, which included the review of the annual financial statements, the very ones that went to the Auditor General. And we are grateful for that intervention which the CFO has put in place, because it assists the organization ensure that when they submit those financial statements to the AGSA, we then not have material corrections, which then results to compliance findings that find themselves into the audit report. Also, there is a risk committee in place. The risk committee is led by a member of the audit and risk committee, Mr. Rishon Cole, who chair that committee, provides a report to the ARC and give insights on the state of risk management in the organizations. We are pleased with the manner in which the workings of the committee is and the recommendations that have been made by the committee, including the need to develop a broader risk library and ensure that the provincial heads are participating fully in the work. We have also received a report on ICT and also engaged on the ICT 5-year plan, which the ICT manager formulated. We note that there are good initiatives and plans that are sitting there. However, the challenge to the plan remains financing the necessary acquisitions or what that needs to be done. So we have submitted to the CFO to find a balance. We do not do accept that there are challenges as far as funding is concerned, but for the ICT plan to deliver on the things that are indicated, the organization will have to make available funding for the infrastructure and the networks and systems that are suitable to deliver on the work of the organization. One matter to note here was the need to automate certain processes, including the report tracking on complaints and their receipts to processing within the organization and eventually concluding to ensure that we eliminate involvement of manual processings, which tends to increase the rate of error. On service delivery outcomes, the report from the accounting officer was processed by the audit committee. There were overachievement on a number of targets. However, there is a need to strengthen verification processes so to ensure that the information that's reported is credible and we kill or remove or reduce the findings that the AGS inference that talks to evidence not matching the performance reported. Chair, if I may stop there with our presentation, just having highlighted all the key aspects of our work in the first quarter. And if there are various questions and so forth, I will then respond there. But the details of it, I think the CFO and the accounting officer has submitted on them. Mine was just to talk to the presence of the governance committees, the King Chapters committees, and the observation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, ARC Chairperson. Yeah, we're just ending your presentation at the right time because your connection is not so stable. And we couldn't quite clearly hear you, but at least we were able to follow the honorable members. Now is your opportunity to raise your hands so that we can engage with the CEO's presentation, the presentation by the CFO, as well as
Sorry, Chair.
Oh, Commissioner, sorry. Acting Chair, you want to make concluding remarks?
No, Chair. I'm just trying to find out, will you be taking also the presentation on Commissioner's work, or you are comfortable with the detailed report submitted together with the brief presentation that has already or has already been submitted?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to ask you to present it because some of the commissioners, of course, have now exited. We did get the commissioner reports and we have gone through it. So I think if members do have any questions, they will be able to ask.
All right.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because, some of those commissioners have now exited and I'm not sure that you will be able to answer for all of them, although we will be able to pose broad questions.
Okay.
Thank you so
No
much,
problem.
Acting Chair.
No problem, Chair. Just to indicate that Commissioner Dile, who is responsible for Free State, is in the meeting but will leave because of the CGE engagement in that province. Just to let you know, Chair.
Okay,
Thanks.
perfect. Thank you very much, Acting Chair. Honourable members, it's now your opportunity. I did see the hand of the Honourable Polwane and the Honourable Mkunu, but I will wait for you to raise your hands, please. Okay, I see 4 hands. It's Honourable Mkunu, followed by Honourable Polwane, followed by Honourable Khadebe, followed by the Honourable Gray Mare. Can I see if anybody else would like to ask any questions?
Chair, if you can also recognize me, I'm unable to raise my hand.
Okay, perfect. The Honourable Chalke Aduanis, the Honourable Adams, and the Honourable Tsotetsi. Okay. We'll start with you, Honourable Mkunu, and then we'll go to Honourable Polwane.
Thank you so much, Slalo. Greetings to you, honorable members and representative of the CGE. Good morning. Firstly, I would like to thank the CGE for the presentation. But Slalo, I would like to raise a concern regarding isiZulu interpretation. I have noticed, Slalo, that when I ask questions in isiZulu, the responses sometimes do not seem to address what I have actually asked. So I'm not too sure if kunenkinga yini kwi-interpretation. Mhlawumbe we need to establish whether isiZulu interpretation is functioning properly like today, because as the members of parliament, we must be able to express ourselves in the official language in which we are most comfortable at. So kubalulekile nokuthola impendulo eqondile negculiselayo. Interpreter is in the house today.
I think the problem, Honourable Mkunu, is that if we've got many portfolio committees that meet at the same time, and if we want to have the interpreters available, we should then request them, because you will recall that Parliament has on numerous occasions told us that they don't have enough interpreters. But I do think if you do want to continue asking your questions in isiZulu, they will be able to be responded to. Let me just check with you, Acting Chairperson, if that will be okay. I'm sure you will be able to capture what the Honourable Member will be asking, you or the CEO. Or would you be uncomfortable in responding if she proceeds in isiZulu? If I could just have an indication.
Well, she can proceed. Chairperson will be able to capture that.
Okay. Mama Mkunu, thank you.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Mhlambe engaqala ngikhulume ngakho ukuthi kulombiko esiwutholwayo kube nezikhalazo ezintsha eziwu-27 kwikota yokuqala. Eziwu-12 zazo zihlobene ne-GBVF. So umbuzo wami uthi zingaki izikhalazo ikakhulukazi ezihlobene ne-GBVF ezisasalele ezingaxazululiwe kuyimanje. Kulezi ke eseyixazululekile, ithini imiphumela yazo lezo zikhalo, nokuthi i-CGE yenzani uqinisekisa ukuthi izisulu zale GBVF zithola usizo nobulungiswa ngesikhathi esifanele, kungahlali isikhathi eside umuntu efaka isikhalo kuloku kubanjwa kuyekwa. Mhlawumbe yiphi indlela abangenza ngayo ukuthi bonke laba bantu abafaka izikhalo kungabi bikho ezisalayo zingaxazululwa, kuphela izinyanga nezinyanga zingaxazululwa. Ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi mhlawumbe yenzani i-CGE uqinisekisa ukuthi lezo zisulu zithola usizo ngokushesha. Okunye okulandelayo ukuthi siyayizwa i-CGE iyabika ngikubika ngakho nemihlangano, iy'nhlelo nemicimbi eminingi eyenziwayo, kodwa kucaci kahle ukuthi le misebenzi iwushintsha kanjani ngempela umphakathi. Yebo, kuyenzeka khona nenze yonke lento eniyenzayo, but kusiza kanjani emphakathini. Mhlawumbe umbuzo ungaba ukuthi nikala kanjani ukuthi iy'nhlelo enizenzayo ziyayithuthukisa impilo namalungelo abantu, ikakhulukazi abesifazane ney'ngane. Kunokuba kubalwa imihlangano nemicimbi kuphela, ake nibale ukuthi kwenzeke kanjani impilo yomuntu, yiphi impilo yomuntu eshintshile ngalezi zinto, ngoba ukuletha imihlangano nemicimbi akusisizi ngalutho. Thina kunaloko sibuka ukuthi le mihlangano eniyenzayo yabo lapho kudliwa iy'mali for sweet nothing nje, yabo. Kodwa-ke sifuna ukwazi ukuthi njengoba nilethe emphakathini, kade naqala nihambisa yini eniyibonayo ewumahluko, niqala kanjani ukuthi lezi zinto enizenzayo ziyawusiza umphakathi, nemihlangano eniyihlalayo ukuthi iyawusiza yini umphakathi leyo mhlangano. Mhlambe futhi kuyosisiza kakhulu ukuthi singayixoxi nje ukuthi siyayikhuluma, kodwa sidinga ubufakazi obucacile bokuthi lezi iy'nhlelo zibe nomthelela muni emphakathini. Nisinike nje ukuthi niye endaweni yokuthi kwenzakalani, yini eshintshile kulowo mphakathi. Okunye ukuthi i-CGE sithola ukuthi iyakhokha 75,000 ngenyanga kumeluleki we-IT. Kungani i-CGE isaqhubeka nokukhokha u-75,000 njalo ngenyanga umeluleki, futhi isingakanani le mali esichithiwe kuze kube manje nje? Isixazululo sale nkinga sizotholakala nini, nokuthi futhi i-CGE iqinisekisa kanjani ukuthi imali yabakhokhi bentela isetshenziswa ngendlela efanele, ngoba sekuyisikhathi eside. What is i-plan yenu yokuthola a permanent ukuthi nizokwenza kanjani going forward, because you cannot keep on spending imali eningi kangaka for i-IT. Enye question enginayo ukuthi okay, enye question enginayo ukuthi kuno 19 million weyimali engasetshenziswanga kahle. Umbiko uthi kuno 12 million wemali echithwe ngokungalandeli imithetho kanye no 7 million wemali echithwe ngokumosheka nje. Engifisa ukwazi ukuthi mhlambe ubani othintekayo kuyo yonke lento yokuthi kuchithwe imali kanjena, nokuthi iziphi iy'nyathelo esey'thathiwe kulabo abatholakala benecala, ngoba angeke kube khona i-fruitless expenditure ekubeni engekho umuntu olida something lapho. So labo bantu noma loyo muntu iziphi iy'nyathelo ey'thathwayo ngemali eningi kangaka echithekile. I-CGE ingasinika namagama abasebenzi abanecala nabathintekayo kulokhu, nokuthi imiphumela yophenyo ikhona yini, nokuthi ikhona yini imali esibuyiseliwe back, ngoba njengoba kumosheka imali eningi kangaka kukhona imali okufanele ibuye. And sifuna ukwazi-ke ukuthi imiphumela yophenyo uma ngabe lwenziwa uphenyo ukuthi ithini imiphumela yakhona, nokuthi ibuyisiwe yini imali. Ngiyabonga kakhulu, Chair. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu Mhlonishwa. Up next is Honorable Pawane.
Chair, good morning to you, honorable members, the Office of the Minister, the CGE, our officials. Chair, let me join my colleague by welcoming all the presentation. They are well informed. And let me join you by welcoming the acting chairperson and the team. Maybe before I ask a clarity on some of the questions, I just want to remind the CGE that in the last meeting, Chair, we agreed that the next meeting, let's make sure that we get progress report on the previous committee and BRR a resolution is the first one. The next one is the other thing is to get a report about the outstanding audit funding. Maybe Chair, the CEO on the presentation says they will reduce the wasteful, fruitless expenditure. I will repeat on this one because it's a burning issue. Already my colleague ubuletse ka yona issue ya irregular expenditure ya 12 million and also the wasteful expenditure ya self fruitless and wasteful expenditure ya 12 million. le gore ke mang a authorizing that money. So maybe I'll repeat on this one. It's a burning issue, Chair. I think I just want to know about this thing. For now, let me stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pulwane. Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues, Minister, all protocol observed. Chair, I want to zoom straight to my point. The Portfolio Committee conducted an oversight visit to the CGE offices and observed serious infrastructure challenges. In some areas, the ceiling are falling apart, while other sections of the office has been sealed off because they pose a safety risk to employees. These conditions are concerning and require urgent attention to ensure a safety and suitable working environment, CG staff. So can we get clarity, Chairperson, on what measures have been taken to address these infrastructure challenges to ensure the safety of the employees and prevent further deterioration of the offices? Two, Chairperson, I think the CFO presentation, it was speak about consultants usage for 2025. So the question that I'm having, Chairperson, that I want to pose for internal audit position, given the monthly cost of 34,000, what tangible value and outcomes did the Commission receive from the outsourced internal audit services? Secondly, does the CGE have permanent internal audit capacity, or is the entire internal audit function currently outsourced? Please provide clarity on the structure and staffing of this function. Thirdly, what is the Commission long-term plan regarding internal audit? Does it intend to continue outsourcing this function? And if so, what is the justification for do so? Can the CGE assure the Portfolio Committee that there are no suitable qualified individuals within the organization who could perform this function, and what evidence support that position? Fourthly, was the decision to outsource internal audit approved by the appropriate governance structure of the CGE? And can the Commission provide the committee with the relevant approval and motivation, Chairperson, because it's a concern that the position that's supposed to be internal is outsourced. I think it was a CEO or CFO. She spoke about the past, what happened. That is why maybe they outsourced it, but I didn't get the reasons why it was outsourced. But she spoke about the past. If there is any wrongdoing on what was happening on this position, I think the CGE must implement a consequence management if the internal audit function was not properly managed, or if the challenges experienced could have been addressed internally instead of outsourcing the function. CGE should ensure that it has the necessary capacity and suitable qualified personnel to perform internal audit responsibility effectively. I submit, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khadebe. Honorable Graimare.
Good morning. My maiden speech, yes. Thank you very much, and good morning to all the colleagues. Good morning to the Minister and Deputy Minister's officers, and to the colleagues from CGE and ARC. Obviously, I'm brand new on this portfolio. This is the first engagement I've had with anything related to the CGE, so if you'll forgive me if I ask any dumb questions. So just having looked at the financials, one of my concerns is that last year, in the last financial year, there was an overspend. I think the overspend was 100, they spent 102% of budget. So this year, already in the first quarter, we're seeing an overspend on depreciation, on leave provision. I think out of the 8 items that were on the list, there was an overspend of a substantial amount. I think we're already on 103% of what that budget should be for this quarter. So I'm just concerned that we're starting already to demonstrate a capacity for overspending on the budget in advance of the full financial year. And are we being cautious around that? And that being said, that also speaks to the fact that we are looking at this overachievement that has been done in this first quarter. And my concern around this overachievement is this exceptional performance? Is it that the targets that were set were too low? And how are we going to make sure that by this massive target achievement, will it balance out in the rest of the year? In other words, they've already demonstrated that the overspend, for example, on maintenance was because they bought 2 years worth of, 2 months worth of products. But I'm worried that if we've achieved so high in this quarter, is this going to be a trend? And if that is the trend, how is that going to relate to spending going forward? Will we have the resources to then meet the balance of our objectives? Or will we have the resources to continue to excel in terms of performance? I hope I'm making sense. Then the other question I had was on the irregular expenditure, the 19 million from the last financial year that they're looking at sort of writing off. That's almost 20% of the budget of this organization, which is obviously deeply concerning. That 1/5 of the budget was reflected as irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. How are we looking at making sure that this isn't the case going forward? I mean, have they identified the reasons why this happened? And what is the impact of writing that off in terms of the financials overall? In other words, if you write off that 20 million, close to 20 million, that's a substantial chunk of money that then is sort of not reflected anywhere in the financials. So how's that being dealt with as an historical allocation? Then in terms of Honourable Radebe just reported on the maintenance issues at the offices and the infrastructure issues at the offices. They did mention that CAMP is going to be provided from Public Works and Infrastructure. I think it's very important that we have sight of that when that comes through, particularly pertaining to maintenance. They devolve these functions, and then the day-to-day sort of maintenance and repairs are for the entity or for the organization that is leasing. And the larger sort of infrastructure requirements then fall within Public Works. We need to make sure that when the CAMP is done and signed, that there is very real delineation and clarity received from Public Works as to what are the requirements for CGE in terms of the upkeep of their offices versus what are the things that can be referred back to Public Works and Infrastructure. Because what happens is that organizations that are leasing properties don't do the day-to-day maintenance because they don't have the funds. They haven't allocated the funds within their budgets for that year. And then it escalates and escalates and escalates until it becomes a really, really big issue. And then Public Works is loath to do that because it's a day-to-day maintenance issue that hasn't been addressed. So we really do need to make sure that whoever is in charge of the facilities management within the organization who will be signing that CAMP is making sure that A, there's budget to do the day-to-day repairs, and B, that there's very clear delineation between what are the responsibilities of CGE versus those of DPWI. Obviously, there's concerns around what's happening within the sort of commissioners, and that we'll obviously address at a later stage. And then just the last thing, I understand the outsourcing of the newsletter. 11,000 Rand a month is not a substantial amount. I mean, you wouldn't be able to employ somebody to do that full time. So I get that. What I'm worried about is when I looked at the report, the sort of AFS report that we were given on the last financial year, there was a whole sort of diagram of impact that that had happened. Well, it wasn't impact; it was reach. So these are the things, we've had this impact in terms of the media that we've done, the social media, the radio station work, the interviews, the newsletter. My question to you is, are you measuring the impact of that reach? So it's all good and well saying we've got this reach, and the deputy, the acting chairperson stated in his opening, that they're really seeing the response to the work that's being done. They're feeling the impact of it. But are there metrics that are being used to measure that? Are you measuring the number of hits you're getting in the media? Are you measuring whether or not there's real, genuine impact being made by the work that's being done? Because I think it's really important that if we're spending money, we are celebrating the achievements in terms of reach, having an impact. Are we seeing a reduction in GBV in the areas that are receiving these messages? Are we seeing an impact in the higher education and training institutions where we are doing outreaches? So I think it's very important that we have measurables against which we can chart whether the work that is being done, the media that is being done, the newsletter that is being done is actually having a tangible impact. Because if it isn't, then obviously it's a waste, and we need to sort of reroute the direction we're taking. But I just think it's very, very important that we then look at that going forward. And then just finally, depreciation. I know it's not a cash item. It was raised in the last financials. It's being raised again in this quarter. Depreciation is something that's quite easy to budget for, because in advance what your assets are, unless you purchase during the year, and it's easy then to work out your depreciation schedule, because obviously the CFO would know how to do that. In as much as it's not a cash item and it's not taking money out of the business itself, it still reflects within the budget. And if we're not budgeting for depreciation, it becomes an unfunded budget item. And we have to be very careful to guard against just writing that off as well. It's not a cash item, so it doesn't affect our bottom line. But ultimately, it is reflecting in the final accounting, and could potentially then be one of the things that is responsible for an over expenditure at the end of the year, which is not a good reflection on your financial management. So I really do think that in as much as this is not a cash item, I do think that depreciation needs to form part of the budgeting process, so that we're not having to justify why we have to add depreciation every time, and why then the budget is overspent. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honourable Grey-Marais, and it's like you have been with us for the entire term, because some of the issues that you've raised, we've also been raising with the CGE. For example, on the issues of the overachievement in terms of media engagements, we often do wonder how that tallies up with the fact that many South Africans are not aware of the CGE, and we've had ample discussions with the Commission around how do they expand their reach, and being able to be accessible to all South Africans that requires their interventions. Honourable Tsotetsi. It will be Honourable Tsotetsi, Honourable Adams, then Honourable Chauke Adonis, then Dr. Letlape, and then Honourable Mbiko. Over to you, Honourable Tsotetsi.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I think I'm just left with few issues to deal with. I just want to find out, Chair, that with a report that there are new offices that have been built, that have been leased, how has the CGE attempted in that process to address the issues that we have been raising about the accessibility of their offices to the people and so forth? I see that there are no addresses in these offices that they have been able to lease. Can they just comment on how are those offices accessible to the people, as that has been one of the pleas that the committee has been making to them? The issue of the newsletter has been covered, but I just want to find out, if this newsletter is in a what form is it in? Is it a hard copy? I doubt that you would reach any milestone if you were to print copies with that amount of money. So what exactly is it? A digital newsletter, or is it a hard copy document? Of course, we have always complained about or raised issues rather about the impact of the programs that the CGE is having in terms of the communities. Quite honestly, we go around various communities and there isn't much that our people know about the CGE. Hence, we will always speak about the impact of your outreach programs, the impact of the open communication or advertising that you would have. Because really, if our people don't know much about the services of the CGE, then all the written reports about how you are having campaigns and everything do not really mean much. So I raised this to emphasize a question which was posed to say, at which point do you make an assessment of the impact of the programs that you have? I just also want to check, we're made to understand that the reports which were adopted by the CFO, the CEO, and plenary were presented without all the financial statements and apparently also adopted. Can we be made to understand the logic of adopting reports without the accompanying copies of financial statements, and if that is recurring or it was an isolated incident, and how have you cured that weakness? I think, Chair, let me pause there. On other issues, I think my colleagues have been able to attend to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Tsotetsi. Honourable Adams.
Good morning, Chairperson. Am I audible?
Thank you, you are. And it's
Thank you
nice to
so
have you
much.
at the meeting.
Thank you. Good morning to all the members on the platform, the Minister, and all protocol observed. Chairperson, I will start with my questions. Question for CGE, the first quarter report, performance against targets. Which first quarter targets were not achieved? What were the specific reasons for the underperforming, and what corrective measures has the Commission put in place to resolve before the end of this financial year? And the next one, Chair, impact on rural communities. What evidence can the CGE provide that its programs are reaching women and vulnerable persons in rural and remote communities, particularly communities where access to CGE offices and services remain limited? And regarding gender-based violence and femicide, Chairperson, given the continued challenges of GBVF, what concrete interventions did the CGE undertake during the first quarter And how does it measure whether these interventions are productive, tangible improvements rather than simply counting workshops, meetings, or awareness campaigns? And then, Chairperson, women with disabilities, what specific work was undertaken during the quarter to address the experience of women and girls with disabilities who may experience multiple forms of discrimination and barriers in access service? And then my, not last, but the second last, young women and unemployment. What role is the CGE playing in monitoring whether government programs aimed at employment, skills development, and economic empowerment and generally benefiting young women, particularly those in rural areas? My last one, Chair, accountability question. Chairperson, can the Commission identify the three most significant outcomes achieved during Q1 that have resulted in a measurable improvement in the lives of women rather than only reporting activities undertaken? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Adams. Honourable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Through you, if you may allow me to keep my camera off.
No problem, Honourable Whip. Most members have kept their cameras off today for connection issues because of the weather, so please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to CGE on the presentation that was presented before us. I think quite a plethora of issues that one would have identified may have been already raised by my fellow colleagues and honourable members. But one would also want to just lament on some of the issues that one would have picked up in terms of the reports and also in terms of the targets and achievements that have been made by CGE. Obviously, Chairperson, notwithstanding the significant progress that CGE has made over the past few years from where it historically comes from, one must have an understanding and also the appreciation to understand that how can we ensure the visibility of CGE goes beyond just what is being reported in this portfolio committee. One of the things that CGE had also presented on, and my fellow colleagues have also just spoken around, would be the media and campaign programs. Now, on this, one would want to find out what are we looking at in terms of the cost implication versus the risk analysis of pulling back and perhaps re-strategizing on how to focus their communication strategy to be more efficient and effective. The reason why we lament this, and as a portfolio committee, we have said that the CGE is not where it needs to be in terms of its visibility, its accessibility, and how it is reachable by communities. And this would then firstly start with the visibility of the officers. And I would put this as part of the media and communication, and perhaps as part of the infrastructural, development as well. I'm not sure how do I club the two together, but one would want to find out if there has been any significant progress or any form of progress and interventions made in terms of the signage and the visibility of CGE, the accessibility of CGE offices and facilities across all the 9 provinces, along with the visibility of the Tutuzela centers. This is quite important because we've done various oversight visits and we have seen that CGE offices are not visible and they are not accessible. So one would want to have an appreciation and understanding what type of budget allocation has gone into that, if any, what type of strategies or planning have gone into ensuring that the CGE offices and services are more visible to local communities and also on the accessibility features for vulnerable communities as well. Chair, in terms of also the newsletter, and I think Honorable Zodetsi also spoke about this, one would want to have an appreciation and understand an understanding whether this is done in-house. Is this an in-house service, meaning the newsletter is produced internally and disseminated internally for external consumption, or are they utilizing a service provider as they are utilizing ITC services from external service providers as well? Just so that we also have a baseline understanding of what are some of the cost that are accompanied with some of the mitigations that they're putting in place for media and marketing. And just on that as well, which will relate to the ICT, what is the plan of CGE? And I think one of the honorable members would have spoken to this, the plan of CGE in terms of capacitating internal human resource to have the ability to man or, not to be gender biased, or to women, to strengthen the ICT capacity of the institution internally rather than outsourcing this particular service. So perhaps if they can give us an overview, if they've done an analysis of what that looks like, what are the cost implications of it, what are the resource implications that would be required for this to be made possible, and have they put anything in place so that going into the future, we're not outsourcing these particular services, but we've got those who are internal, who have the skill sets to be able to develop the ICT infrastructure and any other ICT services and products that the CGE will then require without having to acquire external services. Chair, it was also mentioned in terms of the officers that are currently, they've also signed agreements on, and those that they will only be occupying in October. Now, one wants to find out the ones that they will be occupying in October, but they have, signed the lease agreement. Would there be an expectation from the date that they did sign it, if they can indicate from which date they signed these lease agreements? So from that date until the point of occupation, is there an expectation that CGE will be paying the monthly rental rates, or will that only go into effect once they've acquired, once they acquire the facility? So once they are utilizing the facilities, which would be sometime in October, as it was presented to the portfolio committee, one would also want to find out on that, and whether any of these changes, also of officers, are they looked at to be more accessible? Yes, also looking into the environment that is suitable and conducive for employees. But outside of that scope, are they visible? Are they accessible? Do they bring more visibility for the CGE? Is it closer to communities, etc.? If we can just get an overview on that. Chair, on CGE's irregular and fruitless expenditure, one has an understanding, if I am correct and open for correction, that this fruitless and irregular expenditure was acquired years back. If I'm correct, backdating 2019 or 2016, if I'm correct, the dates will be given to us. But this was a irregular expenditure based on what CGE had previously presented to us, that there was an official within the institution who signed off some sort of remuneration that was outside of the scope of the mandate to certain individuals working or operating in the CGE. Can they just bring that back to us for clarity, context? I know they have presented on this as well. And how far are we with that particular case? Because we do have an understanding that there must be consequences in place. Chair, am I still audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. There must be consequences that are followed up with these particular findings, especially where there are resources and financial resources that have been misused, where there has been irregular and fruitless expenditure. And we do know that that particular individual has since been relieved of their duty. And CGE indicated that there were certain interventions that were being made to pursue whether it was a case against the individual, whether it was some sort of investigation to recoup the resources or the funds, let me say the funds that were misused, etc. Where are we currently? And we do understand that in the report that was presented now, CGE did indicate that their hands are tied to a certain extent. Perhaps if we also have an understanding as to where it is that those hands must be taken to be untied in order for us to ensure that the consequence management is applied in this regard, and also what intervention or mitigation measures have been put in place so that this does not repeat itself in the future, because it is unfortunate that you had an official of CGE who executed and signed off on this particular mandate, which should have been picked up. And one would have wanted to really understand how did it go unnoticed until an AG finding came about. And perhaps if we can also just get what was the AG's recommendation in this regard, where we currently are with this process. Are we going to find joy in terms of recouping the funds, or are we not? And then also the mitigations that are going to be put in place going forward, and if perhaps there needs to be any form of policy reform within the institution of CGE in this regard to process matters of this nature. Second to last, Chairperson, in terms of CGE's broader mandate and also looking at the APP and the targets that have been outlined and set out, I think many of members of the Portfolio Committee would have also echoed this and would also agree that we want to really have an understanding of how CGE measures tangible outcomes. So rather than it being a tick box exercise to say that targets have been met, what is the formula matrix that is being applied by CGE to actually measure, reaching its targets and also outside of meeting its targets, the impact that they evaluating the impact of reaching those particular targets? Are we able to say that CGE went to Kwakwa and after CGE implemented a particular program, it has gone back as part of its program or strategic framework, it goes back after 6 months to go and evaluate in terms of the program that was done there? And what does that look like holistically and in reality? And one does appreciate that CGE, in terms of its interventions, it spoke about the intervention it has made with higher education and other institutions where we have seen issues of sexual harassment and other cases that are really coming more forward than in the past previously. So those are things that, yes, they can say they have measured, but do they have a streamlined, centralized approach on how they measure impact versus meeting or reaching their targets? That's quite important. And then the last one, Chairperson, one would want to know in terms of the operation of commissioners. Now, with the operation of commissioners, we do understand that it is said in today's presentation that commissioners are not employees of CGE, but one would want to know vis-a-vis, how does that look like in terms of the constitutional mandate and the mandate that has been outlined by the CGE itself, internal policies, and how do they then allocate who or which cohort is then responsible for implementation and reaching of particular targets that have been set? I think one of the things, Chairperson, that was mentioned when we did the APP and the budget review, etc., see who is responsible for which particular target. So I think that's quite important for it to be outlined as well, because that will also allow for us to have the ability to measure in terms of who is accountable, who is responsible within the institution itself, and how is it that they are able to then measure that going forward. Chairperson, other than that, I think I've been greatly covered even on the financial aspects and other issues by members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chauke Adonis. Next up is the Honourable Dr. Leklape.
Thank you, Chair. And morning to you, to the Minister, to members, and all those attending. and the CGE and commissioners. I just have two things to ask. Following on the issue of the higher education, sexual harassment policies, accountability, is there any template that they get given in terms of how to deal with these issues, how to report? Is there any protocols about where people go to report sexual harassment? Because higher education is a real problem in terms of sexual crimes, to put it bluntly. And unless there are protocols that are put in place in terms of reporting incidents and making students aware where they can report, is there any mechanism for protection of complainants? Because part of the problem in that society is that once you complain, you get targeted, you get harassed. Are there any mechanisms that have been put in place to protect complainants? And that goes to the next question that goes in general in terms of support to victims and survivors. Because one of the challenges that you have is that you go and report a case of GBV or sexual violence. You are then out there, you are not supported, you are not protected. The person you are complaining against gets arrested, get released on bail, they harass you, and there's no support that's given at all to victims. Is there a plan to deal with that? Because without support to victims, without protection of victims, it goes to the low conviction rate. And that some of the cases eventually get withdrawn and they get thrown out. And people get tired of being harassed and the case is not occurring. So those are just my few questions for now. The other things have been covered by other members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leklape. Honorable Mbiko. Honorable
Okay.
Mbiko. Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair, and good day to all the members who are on the platform. My short three questions, Chair, are like this. I just want to know regarding the Q1 budget allocation. I want to know if it included the specific funding for rural outreach or gender equality programs and how this was tracked. And my second short question is whether there were any irregular expenditures linked to rural projects and how is accountability being enforced? And my last question, Chair, is like how does the committee evaluate whether the financial controls are strong enough to prevent mismanagement? Oh my gosh. Can you hear me?
We can, Honorable.
Okay. Oh, okay, fine. I wanted to check if the committee how does the committee evaluate whether financial controls are strong enough to prevent mismanagement in rural service delivery? That's all that I wanted to know, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mbiko. I also wanted, my colleagues have asked all the important questions, Chairperson, Acting Chair, and our CEO. However, I have noted that you, as the CGE, with two other Chapter 9 institutions, the Human Rights Commission and the CRL, have launched an inquiry into the failures of the criminal justice system in its response to GBVF. And maybe just if you wanted to give us some information about this inquiry, how we as a portfolio committee can support you with this inquiry, and also how long because I see you will be developing some recommendations to strengthen accountability and access to justice. So maybe just an indication what the timeframes for this inquiry will be. We also, during our last engagement with you, I think all honourable members keep on raising the issue around your offices. Honourable Tsotetsi had asked for the addresses of the offices. Honourable Chauke Adonis and Honourable Graimare raised the issue of accessibility and visibility. But we also made some suggestions in our last meeting with regards to how we felt that you could be more accessible to ordinary South Africans. We made some suggestions about a toll-free line and a WhatsApp channel, and I just wanted to know whether you've been able to look into those recommendations. With regard to your vacancies, I do feel that you are, I might be wrong and I will be corrected, but that we keep on hearing of the same vacancies. So maybe just an indication as to how long the current vacancies that you reported on have been there and what is the difficulties in filling those vacancies. Also, Deputy Chair, you made a comment around the business model in your introduction. It is true that we have had some presentations on the business model, but it has been that you have been telling us about the business model and that you do not have the adequate funding to actually implement this business model, which the committee has taken note of, and we have lamented with you the lack of funding to drive this business model, but we haven't per se adopted or approved your business model. So I think if we are to work on this working relationship between ourselves and yourselves, then we should at some point call you back for a full briefing of the business model, as well as the finances attached to it. I also noted, and it was something that I raised in the introduction, but Deputy Chair, I think you would have to, and you did reflect on it, but I think the comments made in her exit report of the Deputy Chairperson, your predecessor, she writes and says, "My tenure was overshadowed by an institutional culture that too often placed internal conflict above public service. I entered an environment already burdened by toxicity, entrenched divisions, and professional bullying. Rather than being dismantled, these unhealthy dynamics permeated successive terms and undermining the Commission's ability to operate as a united constitutional institution. Far too much energy was consumed by competition, power struggles, and personal agendas, when that energy should have been directed towards advancing gender equality." Now, I think this comment from the outgoing Deputy Chairperson really concerns me deeply, because I think we often speak about what we think are the challenges of the CGE in terms of its reach, its accessibility, visibility, being able to be accessible to more South Africans. But if you've got such a toxic work environment, then I wonder how the CGE will be able to achieve some of the goals that we and yourself have set for yourselves. So maybe just a reflection then, Deputy Chair, on how you believe one could improve on the work environment at the CGE, and how some of these challenges that have been highlighted could be successfully addressed. I know that the honourable members have asked quite a lot of questions, CEO and Acting Chairperson, and where you are not able to answer all the questions today as we normally do, we will ask you then to submit in writing. But I do think you've got about a half an hour at least now to start with the responses, and I'll hand back to you, Acting Chair and CEO, to lead your responses.
Thank you so much, Chairperson and honorable members, and thank you for the questions. Maybe just to start from your questions, Chairperson, to say that the comments by the outgoing Deputy Chairperson are as clear as written in the report. And I think, Chair, maybe through you, it would be appropriate for us to engage further on the state of the Commission at the moment. And it's just unfortunate that the 5 commissioners have just recently left the institution, but we will be able to take you through what has been going on in the institution. some, not all, but some of the comments made are a true reflection of what happened at CGE, but we are really committed. At some stage, we have agreed through plenary to write to your good selves to have an audience so that you can be abreast on the issues that are happening at CGE. So by saying so, I am saying we are available for us to engage on this particular item, so that we can keep each other updated, so that you are fully abreast what is happening or what has been happening at the commission. Secondly, Chairperson, I wish to say the first comments made by Honorable Mkunu, and I think because they were made in isiZulu, CEO, it's around the complaints, the GBV complaints, the 12 GBV complaints, and how speedily are we attending to that. But also I want to respond to the issue of a consultant that has been contracted by CGE, the IT. It is circumstances beyond us, because the matter is before the court, and I don't think it would be wise for us to appoint a qualified person on permanent basis to undertake that responsibilities. And I believe, CFO, you will help us here. It is even much cheaper to have this consultant than having a full-time employee in that position. But we do make a commitment that once this issue has been resolved by the court, we will be able to undertake necessary processes to employ someone or personnel that will be taking care of our IT system. The issue of commissioners not being full-time, not being employees, and I think it comes at the background from the background where a commissioner was claiming leave days, and the court really was very clear around this issue to say commissioners are really not employees. But again, we will be taken through this judgment and what it means actually, because commissioners should not be entitled to leave days, and either to go on leave or to claim leave days when they leave the commission, because by nature of their appointment by the president, they are not employees. So when they are not in service, they are inactive, and I think that's what the judgment says. But we'll have to look at that together in terms of that. But to respond direct to you, Honorable Chauke, is to say Secretariat through the Office of the CEO are responsible for implementation of the APP. And all of us, commissioners together, we are all implementing APP. No one is implementing their project on the side. And that is why the organization has performed so well. So strategically, we will be leading delegation either to meet the minister or the portfolio committee. We will be leading a delegation to have a stakeholder engagement to address issues that have been already presented in the report. So when you look at our report, you will also see a clear link between the commissioner's report and what the CEO has presented. I will leave most of these questions to you, CEO, but it suffice to say the issue of offices and addresses of our offices are largely urbanized, Chairperson, and our business plan makes a very progressive stride to say if we were to have regional offices, and I think there has been a conversation with the Department of Public Works to avail properties that are not in use so that CGE can begin to test the model. So there has been a conversation around it. And I think we will have to revisit that in terms of accessibility. But our offices are largely urbanized, and our staff members do go to these periphery areas, rural areas and township. They do visit these offices. And there's one program that we do, the PR, Public Information and Education. Through that program, we do visit radio stations, to canvass the issues to educate the public in general about the work of the CGE. And I do want to agree with you, Commissioner Tsotetsi, that at some point, I also didn't know about CGE because of its lack of footprint in this area, visibility. And I think it's really lack of staff members that we have, because one education officer per province, it's not viable. One legal officer per province, it's really not viable. And that's why we are saying having established systems, at least that have been tested by the Auditor General, to be intact, which we promise to keep them intact and even reach a clean audit. We need now to move beyond this clean audit to impact. And the CEO will take us through will take us through that and how the model envisages us to have this impact in our regions. Commissioners, I'm not sure if anyone wants to respond to all strategic issues that have been raised before I hand over to the CEO and CFO. Okay. CEO, you can come in here. I also note that there is our COO, Mrs. Patricia Ledwaba Mameja, is also going to assist us in answering these questions because she is directly involved in the operations of the organization. CEO, you may lead us, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you once more to honorable members for the questions, which are greatly welcomed, and they are an eye-opener in certain instances, which we see things from your perspective, and we will address this accordingly. I want to start with the first questions around the GBV matters in terms of how are we ensuring that matters are dealt with expeditiously based on those that we have opened and the remaining ones. One of the things that I've highlighted in my opening, Chair, was the non-cooperation by the South African Police Service, and which we have indicated that one of the interventions we'll make is to have a meeting with the Minister of Police so that we are able to address that. Because we do write letters to provincial commissioners, we write to the police stations, and we are not getting adequate progress in terms of the matters that are before us. So the intervention there is to engage with the Minister of Police and address those concerns accordingly. But additionally, we are saying through the inquiry, Chair, we envisage that this will change the current limitations that we see within the justice system, because we firstly wish to bring all the duty bearers, all the relevant ministers to come and account in terms of the deficiencies that we have identified in our investigations through written submissions by the survivors that gone through the systems. We intend to ensure that those lived experiences, they are informing the policy or legislative reform, which on the one hand, the South African Law Reform Commission has started to say, can we review the Criminal Procedure Act in its entirety, particularly 345 sections in total, so that we are able to have a justice system that is responsive to the needs and interests of those that is established to serve. And we hope that this inquiry will feed largely even into that process alone to make sure that we are able to come up with a new law or system, that is really intact and moving away from excluding victims in the process, but really ensuring that justice is established, is expedited when matters are responded to. We do know that the sexual offences courts, as an example, was a measure that was introduced to expedite matters of this nature. But if we still have delay of DNA results and leading to defense attorneys using this as a ground for bail to be granted, it remains a problem. So it is something that we are hoping, Chair, as a systemic issue, we will be addressing it rather than dealing it with an individual case, because all the cases that we are getting, they're so common from one place to another that it requires a systemic change and approach to deal with matters of that nature. So that is the intervention, Chair, that we envisage to take. But whilst the inquiries is forthcoming, we are constantly engaging those duty bearers on the ground to make sure that matters are dealt with. The questions that have been asked, for example, the first question is, how are we ensuring the impact? I've said in my opening, Chair, one of the first that I can share in Q1 was that there were maintenance matters in the Free State that were delayed for a period of 4 years. Through our intervention, child maintenance monies were paid accordingly. We have submitted documents to the NPA where the reasons not to prosecute and the person who did not want to prosecute, names were not reflecting on the docket. The matters were now reinstated and there is a successful prosecution in terms of that. So there are individual cases. One of our limitations that I often say is that it's difficult to share the names of the survivors that we have intervened and successfully got recourse for them because of the POPIA, but of course the sensitivity of such matters, which makes it difficult for us to now say X and Y and Z, they are quite happy. But what we can do, if we can consider it differently, is just to say how best can we now use the letters of appreciation that we get from our clients and complainants on some of these matters. Maybe if we can share that with their permission, that is something that you can see that most of the matters that we get to intervene, there is generally a good feedback about our intervention in terms of the criminal justice system. And then that is something that perhaps will be in our report. We will consider maybe we can have a session of like that will provide more details to honorable members. The question around the BRR, yes, the honorable member is correct. One of the things that was raised in our previous meeting was the issue of disability, particularly sign language. We have engaged with PENSALP and we've agreed for training not only for the commissioners, but also to legal as well as education officers and provincial managers to receive training on sign language so that they are able to deal with the current deficiency that we have. So PENSALP has actually agreed to host us and train us accordingly through that. We have planned it for a whole week session. So we're hoping that we will be capacitated sufficiently. But it will, of course, be an ongoing initiative to make sure that we are always on par in terms of this. And then another area was the integration of disability, of course, in our website. I'll ask the COO to just provide an update to that. But the update that I received essentially was that we are still waiting for service providers in this regard. The contract has come to an end, and one of the things that we've included in the terms of reference is precisely this one, to make sure that our website, amongst others, is accessible to persons with disability, as well as the chatbot, which we said we will include in our terms of reference. It's something that we're just waiting for the successful service provider to then provide. The Honorable Chair in particular raised an issue around our smart indicators. I've said in my opening that we will be amending our APP to deal with the challenge of inquiries versus complaints. We did not want to amend it at the time that the committee was raising it, because from an AG perspective, it will have been a red flag that we are raising, where we want to amend an APP at the end of a financial year, which is not desirable. So we wanted the AG to conclude its audit for us to then deal with the smart indicator that was raised. The question of commissioners' oversight, I think the acting chair has highlighted that. One of the areas of concern was our lack of focus on the youth and the inclusion of men in that regard. In my opening, I've made reference that we focused largely during the Youth Month and the Q1 on youth, gender and disability, as well as men's health to deal with the feedback that the committee was raising. The third recommendation was the provincial legislature. How are we really dealing with that? As indicated, Chair, what we are planning now is just a full investigation on transformation within the legislature, and we are hoping that it will provide the necessary interventions. Those, Chair, are the feedback. This is the feedback that we can provide as far as the BRR report is concerned. The outstanding audit action plan, Chair, we have indicated that the audit action plan will be developed in 2026-2027 to respond to the audit findings that we have received as of the 31st of July. So we will be developing an audit action plan. The previous audit action plan was developed, and in the Auditor General's report, it reflects that we've addressed 80% of the audit findings that were previously raised, which is quite critical. And the remaining ones is something that we are going to be focusing on for us to deal with, particularly on irregular expenditures accordingly. Now, I wanted to also clarify the issue of the irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, Chair. That yes, I can confirm that these are historical in nature. No irregular expenditures have been committed in the past 3 years that are new. These have been recurring irregular expenditures that we see from a historical context, and this involves the panel of attorneys, because what was done was that we had a panel of attorneys and there was no rotation system that we were following as an institution. So as a result, every payment that was now made to any law firm since the panel of attorneys would amount to irregular expenditure, and it will reoccur up until we now introduced a rotation system to make sure that there is equitable distribution of work to the panel of attorneys. But what is important is that this was work that was ultimately rendered to the commission. So it was not in vain per se. It will be a problem if the panel of attorneys were allocated work that they never delivered. The work was done. The principle here of concern was that as far as the panel is concerned, we were not using a rotational system, which the management has subsequently addressed, and we are currently implementing that system for us to not incur any irregular expenditures. The issue of the employee in question, or rather, to what end our hands tied? Our hands are tied because of a legislation, the Prescription Act. Because if the claims are prescribed, because we're dealing with matters in 2019, 2020, the Prescription Act bars us essentially to pursue claims that have prescribed. And if you were to institute proceedings on claims that have prescribed, it goes without saying that you're going to not be successful in terms of litigation. And that is something that we are privy to. In fact, we've challenged the AG to make its position clearer on these transactions, because if the AG insists that you must go and recover, knowing very well that there's a legislation that bars us from doing that, what does that say? Because at the end, Chair, we will institute proceedings against individuals and we are going to lose cases. We'll come to this committee and you'll ask us, why didn't you consider in your wisdom that you will not be able to be successful in this regard? So that's where we are merely coming from. So that's why the appropriate thing to do under the circumstance is to write off. And when we write off with the understanding that the monies were not in vain. Services were ultimately rendered in that regard. The issue of the internal audit capacity, as well as IT. The IT, I need to clarify, Chairperson, is that we do have a position of an IT manager on the organogram of the organization. The reason why we are not filling that vacancy is because the person who was appointed to take over that position did not report to work as it was expected. The offer was given and one was giving all sorts of reasons why they cannot come to work at a particular day. And we had audit that had already commenced. So as the commission, we felt that already there is trust issue between ourselves and this individual. So we did not appoint that person, and the person now instituted proceedings on unfair labor practice, which we are defending. But the principle that was taken was that if a person says, I'm going to come on Wednesday, they don't come on Wednesday. You say, come on Friday, they don't come on Friday. Instead, they make reference that they will come on Monday. The management then was uncomfortable to then bring such a candidate to the office that will end up being compromised. So the outsourcing now comes from the package of that IT manager. So instead of getting one individual to render IT services, which would be the case in terms of the organogram, what the outsourcing does, it gives us more personnel to provide more services in that regard rather than one individual. So it's not a wastage per se, because we are using monies of that person had they been appointed as an IT manager. So we've considered it. We have approached plenary. Plenary did approve it as a governance structure of the organization. And if records of that are requested, we can definitely make those available. But a proper, transparent process was followed from the Audit and Risk Committee all the way to the IT committee, the Good Governance Committee, as well as plenary committee of the Commission for Gender Equality. As far as the internal audit, the same principle applied. We had a chief audit executive of the commission. We are using that package of a chief executive audit to get more personnel rather than an individual to deal with capacity constraint. All of this was also considered the issue of capacity constraints. So instead of having one CAE, we have 4 or 5 people now under the same package who are now rendering more services to the commission to our benefit as an organization. One of the interventions that, of course, that they're now doing is the determination test on irregular as well as fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which has been quite helpful. As you will appreciate, these are historical in nature, and internal audit with all those colleagues involved are now able to provide this service. So I respectfully submit, Chairperson, that when we considered this, it was also on the aspect of efficiency and value for money. So from where we sit in chair, yes, I think the concerns are legitimate. And however, where we were coming from was just to deal with capacity constraints, both as at an IT as well as internal audit. And then as far as the capacity training of the internal office, internal audit, we currently have one official who is dealing with internal audit, who is a permanent staff member. We also have one official who is a permanent staff member at IT level. So these individuals are now provided with support by those 2 service providers accordingly. The issue of measuring impact, Chairperson, and I think we discussed this at some point with our commissioners and colleagues, that perhaps maybe we'll come here and pitch it a little bit differently to say, are we measuring impact in terms of the number of the reduction of cases that are reported, or should we be measuring impact in terms of now people who are now informed and are able to report cases where they are violated against? Because that is the one aspect that I think we need to find each other in a way. Perhaps with your wisdom, we will understand better. Because from our view was that we do education, we do teach, but we cannot control what a person ultimately does when they're alone. But what we can measure is when a person is capacitated to report, are they able to know the channels? Do they know where to go? And if they are able to do that, then it is successful on our side, because then they are capacitated. And I provided an example about our interventions with the youth, particularly children, when we engage with school circuits, Department of Education and DSD, that it was the police that said, after our engagement with the communities in Mpumalanga, they now saw an increase at a particular period regarding referrals that were made by the educators, which for us was quite important, because it says now the educators know what is expected of them. One of the things that we highlighted or unearthed during Q1 was that there is misalignment in terms of the referral of matters pertaining to child abuse and the completion of the Form 22. That understanding that we were able to capacitate duty bearers has resulted in matters being reported to the South African Police Service. But we are not able to control, Chairperson, what a person ultimately does. If a person chooses to break the law, those that are victims must be able to know that the doors to seek recourse are as follows. And if they're not able to get joy, they must know that there is a Commission for Gender Equality that may be approached to deal with that. So that's how we have been looking at it from an impact per se perspective, rather than there is a reduction. Because there are a number of reasons why there may be a reduction, because people are fearful to report matters, because they may be cajoled to mediate matters of gender-based violence, which we are against. So we are saying an impact should also be looked at from the number of people who are now able to report matters to the relevant authorities accordingly. But the point is really taken from your perspective, Chair. The newsletter, Chair, it is a digital one. It is done in-house. The layout and design is the one that is now outsourced. So we do have one official with an intern that are responsible for the department, as well as a communications manager. So those are the three officials that are able to compile the newsletter accordingly, and we are making it available bi-weekly. I do urge honorable members, if time permits, just have a look at our WhatsApp channel. We do issue out on a bi-weekly basis. Let me just check. So the issue of impact, again, of our programs that the people don't know about the CG, it's common cause, and we accept, Chairperson. The question is the mechanisms that we are improving, are they able to yield the positive results? One of the interventions through the public education information is the bulk SMS, that campaign that we are able to send out information to our stakeholders and share some of the developments that are there within the gender space, just to improve and ensure accessibility. And we work with universities as one of the key stakeholders just to disseminate some of our work, and we see universities further disseminating our work. We accept, Chair, that we are not able to reach the less and breadths of the country, and that is something that we will have to come up with a new strategy to ensure that we are able to deal with that. I've listened carefully, Chair, in one of your committees around the issues of regional offices, engage some of the stakeholders will be talking about the need, or rather using South African Police Services, as district offices to expand reach. We can emulate the same thing. The challenge is that we will not have personnel within the current budget to be able to go into district offices to expand the necessary reach. If we could have something like that, Chair, we will be able to do that. There was a request that, in fact, Commissioner said that we must have gender champions, right? Which would involve personnel who will speak on behalf of the Commission, who will be able to take the message of the CG on a ground basis. We have explored that, but those that we were able to engage, Chair, they needed a fee for them to deal with that. So those are the realities that we have, Chair. And I think if we can address the sustainability risk, we'll be able to expand our reach as it is expected. The issue of targets versus the outcome, which targets have we not met? Chairperson, we have met all our targets, and in terms of the impact to rural areas, we are able to report, Chair, that a province like the KZN is predominantly a rural province, and most of our engagements, they take place in rural areas with different district municipalities where we conduct our outreach programs. So that's where we are. So places like Umzimkhulu is where you'll find that some of the engagements take place, but we accept, Chair, that we could do more. With the necessary capacity, definitely something that we can look at, Chairperson. So I've responded on the issue of concrete interventions in as far as GBV. The issue of women with disability and what have we done. One of the interventions we have, again, reference to KZN, is that we had a standing program with KZN Deaf Association, where we now focus largely on women and girls with disability. Our report that we finalized in 2025-2026 also looked at gender and disability, particularly focused in terms of the workplace challenges that women with disability experience. So that is something that we will be sending that report to the committee to look at the recommendations. We delayed to submit these reports because the service providers are still busy with layout and design, but this will be one of the reports that we will submit to yourselves for consideration. And then the role of the young women and employment in that regard. The intervention that I made reference to, that we met with women farm workers, was precisely around that, to ensure that the state does what it's expected to do in terms of capacity and supporting women farmers, who are in the main also happens to be the youth. So we have linked them with the relevant councils to make sure that they are provided with the necessary capacity. Z22 is one of those interventions, again, that was focusing on capacitating women farm workers and farmers largely, who we consider as vulnerable groups in this space, so that they are able to be provided with the necessary skills when they run their own employment services. The media campaign cost, I'll ask the CFO to just deal with this one. And the signage and visibility, Chair, I think with the new offices, I think we have considered the issue of location, Chairperson, but one of the problems was that when we consider the location, it must be within the means of the commission. So the desired offices, unfortunately, we could not afford. We could only afford what we ultimately resolved into. But one of the interventions we are going to make once we have moved in is to engage with local municipalities just to improve signage along the roads. That we have also commenced in the Northern Cape. I think the municipality has given us a green light that we can put the signage so that members of society are able to see where we are. So I think that will be an intervention that we can make. And then the issue on the template. So I've addressed the capacity, ITC, irregular expenditure. So one of the issue of irregular expenditures is that these are historical matters, as I've said. Majority of people who host the irregular expenditures are no longer within the employ of the commission. So who has authorized it? It follows that any irregular expenditure ultimately would be the accounting officers. It will involve the CFO. It will involve different line managers accordingly. And we submit that the 2017, 18, 19, 20, all the colleagues that are flagged in terms of the irregular expenditures are no longer in the employ of the commission, but the services were rendered. So if you think of irregular expenditures, for example, like telecom dates back to 1996, as I always say, and it was providing services to the commission in terms of the telephones, right? The issue there was that we did not follow a due process, because now the contract was regularly extended without a fair competition. So those are the things that led, as an example, for irregular expenditures to be incurred at the time. But the services were rendered. So we are simply saying we must consider the empowering provisions, because the empowering provisions also say if the monies were not spent in vain, if pursuing this matter will result in the person's hardships being worsened, we must consider a write-off of such expenditures. It's there in terms of the frameworks, the PFMA that we are relying on, and regulations. So that's where we need to go back now to say, if we look at those expenditures, were money spent in vain? No. The services were ultimately rendered. We cannot implement consequences because the colleagues are no longer in the commission, and we do a proper write-off accordingly. And then the issue of the template for institutions of higher learning in terms of handling sexual harassment. Yes, Chair, we are relying largely on the code of good conduct on the handling of sexual harassment in the workplace, which is it's a critical guiding tool that provides the do's and the don'ts and how to really deal with victimization, quid pro quo, amongst others, to make sure that there is an enabling environment. One of the things, of course, is about risk assessment that needs to be done. And what we're raising with the minister was that you have a framework that is there, but in this particular instance, we're making reference to a matter in the TVET College in Limpopo, wherein there is gender-based violence that has been committed by a staff member, but the victim is not a staff member nor a student. But the TVET was of the view that because the victim is not a student nor a staff, therefore there's nothing we can do about it. They will rather observe the criminal processes, which our view was that they cannot do that because they still have a duty as an employer to create that enabling environment. And we know that criminal matters take 4 years. So does it mean they can't do anything? So we were able to empower the department that they must conduct that risk assessment, and on the basic of the outcome of that risk assessment, then they make a determination. So what we're highlighting to the minister is that you have people who are in critical positions to deal with sexual harassment, but they are not capacitated. So one of the areas is that capacitate your team and then come up with a standardized framework that will apply to all institutions of higher learning. So Universities South Africa will be one of the structures that we'll be working with to make sure that we standardize those processes across the institution, because they deal with them from one area to another. Some they have a sexual harassment committee. In some instances, they don't have a sexual harassment committee. Processes to deal with those matters expeditiously are different. And where there is delay, there is no consequence. Those are the issues we got from higher education, and we're hoping that the guiding tool that we have given them will be able to address the issue accordingly and provide survivors with the necessary protection. And then, Chair, with regard to the inquiry, as indicated, yes, we intend to hold duty bearer accountable, and we will be working very closely with the South African Law Reform Commission in terms of this process as well. And definitely there is a role, Chairperson, that the portfolio committee can play in this process. I'll request, though, that let me engage with my principals, the chair of the CGE, and CRL, as well as the Human Rights Commission, to formally communicate with you in terms of how best you can assist. And what we welcome out of just this question, Chair, is that we see yourselves not just as a body where we account as the CG, but we see you as a strategic partner to push some of the recommendations that we are having as an institution, just like we will be presenting the report on gender and disability, that we will be coming to you, yes, to account, but also be saying, Chair, how best can you assist so that we can move this journey together? Because we believe that the achievement of gender equality cannot be the role of the CG alone. It requires a concerted effort from all key role players for us to achieve it. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, CEO. The CFO, did you have any questions you wanted to respond to, or the ARC chairperson?
Thank you, Chair. I can take the depreciation item as much as the member has provided her inputs. However, the allocation that we receive from Treasury, the 111 million, is purely to fund the activities that requires cash out. Depreciation doesn't require the cash out. That is why we report on it, because it's a non-cash item. We only process a journal. And this has been audited over years and it passed the audit. However, we note the honorable members' inputs. And just to add on the 12 million and the 7 million of irregular, frivolous, and wasteful expenditure that was removed, The 7 million in particular, it's for the 100 hours matter that was raised in 2021, 2022 by the internal audit that was compromised internally. And then AG took it over and raised it. It started by being irregular, and the following year it was transferred to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And the determination test was done, and it was found that commissioners actually worked. So there was no money wasted because they have evidence of the reports, timesheets, and everything that they worked in that particular period. So the whole 7 million had to be then removed. The matter was also referred to Treasury. Internal audit did a determination test, and Treasury responded accordingly to say, let's follow the framework of irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure in dealing with it. And they were removed and they were audited in this financial year. All the processes were successful or passed the test in terms of audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, CFO. Any comments, ARC Chairperson?
Thank you, Chair. To echo the submission from the CFO and also submit to the honorable members that the matters that led to irregular expenditure were dealt through a process, and that process involved the internal audit doing a determination test to ascertain, one, the non-compliance, and also whether a loss was suffered by the organization in the process. And there was also a submission made to National Treasury on this process and the results of the process, which was dealt with by the ARC, and recommendations made to the accounting officer to get these matters written off. So we do note that a certain procedure was not followed, which led to this amount of money being deemed irregular. But the determination test proved that there was no loss suffered by the CG in the process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, ARC Chairperson. Honourable members, I want to check if any of you feel that some of your questions were not properly answered and that you want them in writing. I see the hand of Honourable Bungane.
No, thank you, Chair. Actually, it's a follow-up question.
No problem.
On the two matters that I've raised. I would like to seek clarity from CGE, the outsourcing of internal audit function. If there is already someone or official, because I thought when they said they've outsourced that service, there was no one. So the response says, yes, there is someone there. If there is already a permanent or official and suitable qualified internal audit official within the CGE, what is the justification for appointing an external service provider to perform or assist with the same function? How does the CGE demonstrate that this arrangement provides value for money, particularly when the institution is already paying the salary of an official or permanent employee who is responsible for internal audit? What specific skills or capacity does external service provider provide that the permanent official or internal audit official does not have? Has the CGE conducted a cost-benefit analysis comparing the cost of using the external service provider with strengthening the existing internal audit capacity? Lastly, what measures has the CGE put in place to ensure that there is no duplication of work or unnecessary expenditure between the official or the permanent internal audit function and the outsourced service provider? Lastly, Chairperson, we've done the oversight there. We've conducted, as a portfolio committee, we've conducted the oversight in their offices. So I'm coming with the follow-up question again. What measures is the CGE taking to address the poor and, in some instances, unsafe office infrastructure and working condition. What is a time frame for addressing these challenges to ensure that employees have a safe and suitable working environment? You know, Chairperson, you can attest to that. The condition there is not good, more especially the ceilings and that place that was sealed. You remember I even called you. They said you must not go out because it's dangerous to go out there. So can I get these responses, Chairperson? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Khadebe. I did see your hand, CFO, but I'm going to just check finally with my honorable members if anybody else would like to ask a follow-up or remind the CGE of your questions that remain outstanding.
Yes, Chair.
Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable Tsotetsi, followed by Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Well, thank you, Chair. Just these two issues. I think I've heard the CEO say the 11,000 that was in question for a newsletter was basically for the outlook of the letter. He said actually it was for the first page and so forth. I just needed to confirm whether he's saying that is basically only for the outlook of the letter. The second one was on the question of the panel of attorneys. How have they then remedied what has been flagged by the AG in terms of their current operation? Firstly, is have they addressed the matter in terms of the rotation? Secondly, is in that rotation which would be spoken about, how often do they allow or make space available for new entries in terms of attorneys to come? How often do they renew that panel of theirs? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tsotetsi. Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think mine can be coined as a new question, but it would be as in addition to a question that I had already asked in terms of the communications and media. I'd like to just find out from CGE in terms of the cross-interdepartmental or stakeholder engagement on accessing or dissemination of information. Perhaps if CGE can also just on this platform indicate whether they've got any strategic partnerships with any other state-owned institutions, entities, or government facilities that are broadcasters or disseminators and distributors of information, such as your GCIS, your SABC, and others. I think it would be quite important for us to really get an understanding and appreciation of how they can also equally utilize or leverage off of some of the state resources that are made available for them to ensure that the CGE is more visible. And then the last one would be on CGE. It did mention some of the priority focus areas for this second quarter, which one of them was around elections. Perhaps if they can just, I'm not sure if they will respond to it now or in writing, Chairperson, is for us to give us an overview in terms of the framework of what CGE seeks to do in terms of overseeing, making recommendations or intervening or whatever it may be that CGE sees itself playing a role during this elections, whether it be providing, guidance to political parties, ensuring that there's civic education, voter education. What exactly will CGE be doing as part of its program during the local government elections? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back to you, CEO and CFO. I don't see further hands. And just remember, I can't remember when we had a discussion with you, your toll-free line that you currently have, is it only for fraud and ethics, complaints, whistleblower complaints, or the current toll-free line that you've got, what is it utilized for? And your WhatsApp channel, if you remember, we had a discussion with you about looking into how we can also have a feature where complaints can be lodged through the WhatsApp channel. So all of South Africans are using WhatsApp these days, so that they're able to access you and your offices, at least if they cannot reach your offices that are sometimes, like we have said, Deputy Chair, not in rural areas, but at least if they're able to lodge a complaint or get your attention through a WhatsApp channel, that could also be useful. Honorable Adams, I see your hand, but I think it's a legacy hand.
Sorry, Chair, it's a legacy hand.
Thank you, Honorable Adams. Okay, I'm going to hand over to you, CEO and CFO, before we close.
Sorry, Chair. Maybe before we move on, I'm going to ask Commissioner Mokhane. Sorry, Chair. I'm going to ask Commissioner Mokhane to assist in answering the communications question, and also just to add on the election project during this quarter.
Okay.
CEO, yeah. Commissioner Mokhane.
Thank you so much, Acting Chairperson. Thank you so much, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and honorable members and colleagues. I'll be very quick and short. First of all, with regards to the communications, I have been tasked to, first of all, I'm the communications chairperson for a committee in CGE, and I've also been tasked with the IT. So that'll be ICT committees that I'll be thankfully leading. I think for us, it's just to, first of all, welcome and thank the honorable members for all the different recommendations that you have made. I would like to, first of all, zoom in on the GCIS. We have established a great relationship with them, and they have even communicated and said, CGE, if you are out having engagements and we are available, invite us. We'll be able to cover that engagement. So we have the relationship established. We've had support here, even in Mpumalanga, where I am deployed. So we are working on it. However, it is based on availability. So right now, we are working on the transitioning of the data we have and how it will then be recompiled so that it fits or suits the GCIS requirements. So that will really come in handy. And then for Q2, there's so many great partnerships that are pending. As you would recall, we have had relationships with various TV channels, but the SABC is in talks with us right now. We are finalizing it for Q2. We will be able to actually start displaying or sharing our content on their channels, which will reach a much broader topic or broader consumption of viewers. So we are really excited about that. And then lastly, the one place where everyone goes to, regardless of where you come from, is what? ATMs. The CGE is right now working on ensuring that CGE awareness numbers and information or data is displayed on certain ATMs, and we're still working on various partnerships with various banks. So we have noted that, in as much as we have our own communications goals and platforms that might be limited, it might not reach everyone. We go on the radios, we have interviews, but they might not reach all the individuals, especially those who are in remote areas. We are now looking at ways to ensure that we, with our FISD partners, for example, right now with our sister institute, IEC, they are going around encouraging people to vote, to keep voting. And as they are going around, because they also got the budget, we as the CGE are invited to also go and also campaign and advocate for that gender lens or gender mainstreaming aspect with them. So those partnerships are coming in very, very handy, and we are really appreciative of that. And also just to add on to the question by Honorable Chauke Adonis, on what is the CGE doing regarding the local elections. We are driving this campaign, this advocacy, and also reiterating the reports we have previously published with regards to women representation in political parties. Right now, we are doing a lot of more awareness campaigning, a lot of advocacy, and also going to different, we are being invited by parties. We're being invited by the Women's Caucus Party itself to come and give feedback as to what exactly is happening on the ground. We have engaged with even local councillors from, the previous terms and those who are now going to be elected, and we're going to continue with those workshops as well with them. Our key aim is to ensure that people get a proper lens as to what is taking place within politics. Of course, there needs to be an understanding of the environment that it is. And then from there, We also encourage the women representation in context with what exactly is happening with their own parties as well. So we also ensure that with our reports, with our research, we give a true reflection so that those who will be nominated also have this introspection as to, am I ready to lead? Am I ready to participate? So there's a lot of awareness taking place, but our key aim is to ensure that advocacy takes place for women representation. So we are part and parcel with other institutions, with other service providers, with other individuals who are also civil society themselves, who come and say, CGE, I heard you speaking about this, but we are 5 hours away from where you might be. Can you train us? So the trainer programs, siyaba trainer so that mabafika mhlambe lona eGedlembani bakhona khuluma ngale Zulu noma leSwati to ensure that we can unpack issues. So where we can't reach because of limited resources, we do our best so that we can be able to transfer this mandate that we have. But we appreciate the inputs. There's a lot that we'll be reporting on in Q2. I think for us, this shift, what we've gone through, the changes, it did, it was a blow, but we are at this moment in time taking a stand and marching forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mkhwane. Chair, I would hand over to CEO. I saw the hand of the CEO as well. CEO, you will take the CEO as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. It's always difficult to speak after the Communications Committee Chair Mkhwane. I thought you'll be saying it's over, we can go home. But it's on a lighter note, Chairperson. The work of the Commission, in as far as the newsletter is concerned, is that, yes, I can confirm that it is done internally. The layout and design is that one that is done by an external service provider. So that is what I can confirm. The issue of panel of attorneys, so we have a huge list that we've issued a tender. The colleagues have submitted documents, and those that have submitted the documents and are successful bidders are now on this list of attorneys. So every matter that we get, we follow the particular sequence. So we'll start with 1, 2, 3, 4, and allocate. Once we are done with the 15th individual or 15th law firm, we'll now go back again to number 1. Because historically, you'll find that number 1 or number 2 is the one that are getting all labor matters. And we never allocate anything to attorney number 7 in that regard. So that's what we have done to try to correct that. And we have benchmarked with other institutions. I've called my counterparts and I found that they follow the same process. And that is why now the AG did not raise anything pertaining to the rotation. They are quite happy with that. And that's the process that we are going to follow. And there is no space, Chair, to enter new law firms at this stage because we have allowed the previous law firms, the contracts to come to an end, and we've issued the tender. Those that bid will be the ones that are considered up until their contracts come to an end. If we were to include anybody at this point without having followed the tender process, it will definitely cause problems for us. And then I think in terms of the elections, Chair, the focus will be on the pre-elections, during and after elections. We will do monitorings also during the elections period where we'll have our own colleagues, commissioners as well as staff being on the ground to do the necessary election monitoring. We will develop a tool to ask certain questions to presiding officers and those that we are observing on the queues, for example, issues pertaining to pregnant women, issues around parents with children, issues around elderly persons, the announcement ultimately in terms of what does it look like. But at the pre-elections, we'll look at different manifestos as indicated. To what extent are they now embedded on the principle of gender equality? To what end do they ensure that those manifestos, they ultimately result in a certain group that is underrepresented being represented? As indicated, Chair, we presented it, I think three stakeholders during this quarter, just on this capacity building session with political parties through the multi-party committee, where we're now meeting different persons there, and then we'll be presenting. And I think the consensus that was clear is that there is a serious regression as far as women representation is concerned in leadership positions, and there needs to be that intentional commitment to really ensure that we meet that 50-50 parity that we envisage in terms of the Maputo Protocol. And essentially we'll continue to have those sessions. What is important is that we're saying that there needs to be mechanisms where we ensure that those that are underrepresented are equitably represented at all levels of the organizational structures. Thank you. And then the issue of the internal audit, Chairperson, the difference is this: the chairperson, the firm that we have procured services for is led by a chartered accountant, and the internal colleague that is in the commission is not a chartered accountant. For one to be appointed as a CAE, there are qualifications that one must possess. And that is why, in terms of our structure, we have those two positions. We have an internal audit employee, and then we have a CAE. So the CAE is not appointed as an individual. Instead of appointing an individual, we said let's rather appoint a company. But the person who's leading it is a chartered accountant with all material respects. So there is value for money in the sense that if it was just one individual, all these determination tests would have meant that we must now go out and outsource another company to do that. But in this instance, we're saying this company that is now appointed will do all internal audit services that we would ordinarily pay more. But in this instance, we are still using the same salary that was meant for a CAE to get 4 or 5 people on this project. That's why we're saying from our side, there's value for money in the sense that we get more persons to do this work instead of one individual. So it is from that premise, the chair, that we then resolve that maybe it's something that we can do to sustain the capacity constraints that are there in the internal internal audit. The committee may recall that this was the very issue that your councils have raised, that what are we doing to capacitate internal audit, because it cannot be one person. And we brought 4 or 5 people with a package of one individual to provide those services. That's the response that I can provide, Chairperson. If I missed anything, I'll be guided. Thank you, Chair. Oh, pardon me, Chair. I was also guided here that in as far as the WhatsApp channel, we will be doing it during Q2, because we're waiting for the surplus retention, because the WhatsApp channel, that feature, it needs a subscription. So all the subscription, we do them at a particular time in the financial year for everybody. So we'll be including that feature in the WhatsApp channel. The toll-free, the quotation that we got was again 216,000 to have a toll-free number, which again will be capitalizing on the surplus to try to include that in our current contact list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, CEO. Can I check if the CFO still wants to make any comments?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to respond on the office infrastructure challenges that was raised by the honourable member. Yes, if you recall, the current or the outgoing offices that we are using were procured by DPW, and that is why they had defects and all the problems that were there and are still there. However, as we get our new office spaces, we're making sure that we get decent office spaces that are not having problems that will compromise, like in terms of access, where the disability is not catered for. It was part of our requirements in our bid procurement processes. And when we're doing the viewing, we're ascertaining that those offices are meeting the requirements. You recall the KZN office was also a problem, and the one that we're getting now, it's a decent office space with easy access, accessibility-wise, we sorted. And the head office one, as you visited it, you will see when you go to the new office that we have now procured it with our funding that was devolved to us. And just to add on the CEO's part of it, in the past, when we used to have 2 employees that were permanent before the CAE left, we were still, because of capacity constraint, meaning 2 people cannot be able to audit the entire organization, because we're dealing with HR matters, IT matters, SCM matters, finance matters, which is budgeting, reporting, payments, as well as performance-wise. So you always need a variety of people with different expertise. That is why an ideal staff complemented CG for internal audit, it's plus minus 5 employees. However, at this point in time, with our limited resources, we could only appoint 2. However, with the one that left being compromised, we then resorted to say, let's rather get an outsourced company to supplement the 1 employee that we have, who doesn't have the requirement, who doesn't meet the requirements of being a CAE, being supported by the firm that is charging us only 34,000 per month. Their 36 months contract is 1.2 million, meaning we're only paying them 400,000 per annum for rendering all the internal audit activities, and they are using our internal resource as an internal auditor to work with them, capacitate him. But him being alone, we cannot be left with him alone, because it won't be enough to cater all the internal audit activities that needs to be rendered, and to make sure that all the quality assurances are ticked in the boxes for AG to come and audit us, and for us to know and confirm that our internal controls are in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, CFO. Deputy Chairperson, our acting chair, I'm going to hand over to you for your concluding remarks. Although I do see the hand of the COO. My apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe we must take the COO first, and then I'll do my concluding remarks. Okay. COO.
Noted. Thank you, Honorable Chair of the CGE, and also the Chair of the committee and Chair members. Basically, there was one question that was not answered, and the first one is the recruitment timelines. We would say the recruitment timelines, our recruitment timelines is basically 90 days. It's informed by the APP and also the operational plan, which was duly signed. But in addition to that, we have a recruitment plan, an annual recruitment plan that we have adopted as an institution. And then in addition, again, we have a quarterly recruitment plan. So the 90 days is informed by specifically looking into advertisement, shortlisting, interviewing, security checks, and then there comes also the appointment of individuals or personnel. So we need to make sure that the due diligence is done from our side. That's the first part. And then the second part, in terms of strategic partnership, which was addressed by Commissioner Mohane, we do have the GCIS, and in addition, there are those pending agreement with the SABC, but in addition, we do have a pending agreement which was duly signed with Parliament TV, and we are hoping that will assist us in building our visibility, enhancing our visibility as well. So also in terms of the locations of our provincial offices, as we have a footprint, we are ensuring that the location is just and equitable, and we also serve our communities, more specifically the vulnerable groups. Those are our priorities. So we need to make sure that our office spaces are at all material times strategically located. Thank you.
Thank you, COO. Thank you so much, Chairperson, for inviting us today. And I'm about to hand over to just a few things that I think we need to note from our side. Just to say, as this cohort, we remain available for issues that you've raised at the beginning, for us to have bilateral meetings and see how we can take the institution forward. And I want to assure this committee that it's never about us, but it's about the people of South Africa out there listening to us on a daily basis and waiting for services to be delivered. And so my commitment to you, Chairperson, is that we remain available, and we will always be available for us to discuss all the concerns raised, including the business plan that we are trying by all means to implement, so that we can see how can this committee assist us to secure funds and to even speak to Treasury. With that being said, Chair, we are indebted to you and we appreciate the opportunity to present here, and all other issues pertaining the concerns and business plan will be discussed at an opportune time. So thank you so much for inviting us. If there's any question that we did not answer, we'll remain available to put that in writing again for you, Chairperson, for your consideration. Thank you so much from our end. We do appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Acting Chairperson. I wish to thank you, the CEO. I want to thank the commissioners present, the entire CGE team, and also all our honourable members of our portfolio committee for the robust engagements this morning. I think firstly, it is good to hear, CEO, that you see us as a strategic partner. And that I also feel that going forward, I do believe that we will be able to work closer together with you, Acting Chairperson, as you've indicated, that you are also willing to have bilaterals with us, explaining to us around some of the issues that have gone wrong on the side of the CGE, so that we can partner with you to rebuild this organization. I never saw our relationship as one that should be hostile. We've always said that, and you've said so, CEO, you don't just see us as where you come to actually report or for an oversight body, but we do share our ideas. We are really here to partner with you. And as you've said, Acting Chair, it's never about us. It's about the people that we, as members of Parliament, have been elected to represent. It's about the people you have been tasked with to work for. It's ultimately about South Africans and ultimately about us working a journey together to ensure that we achieve meaningful gender equality. So I feel confident today about you hearing us and us, walking this journey together as we go into the rest of the year and next year and beyond. I think it's good to hear about your new offices, that at least the KZN one and the head office will be more accessible. It's also good news that you're looking into some of our proposals around the toll-free line, as well as expanding the WhatsApp line. So really just from my side, I think we will have you back soon. I must say that this third term of Parliament is very short, and I know we are all then focused on the elections. And when we come back in the fourth term, it's going to be very packed. But it would be important for us to have you back so that we talk about the business plan, we talk about some of the work that you are doing, because ultimately we do want to lend you the support that you need to have the money in order to be able to implement this business plan. So thank you very much. I'm most grateful for you attending today. I think if any honourable member still feel that you've got outstanding questions that you would like to be answered in written form, you can just alert Ms. Silly, and she can be in contact with the CEO. Colleagues, I just wanted to say before we go now, it's 1, we are going to have a special meeting for our minutes and reports. We can schedule that for the 25th to adopt our outstanding minutes and reports for this third term. I also want to say that you had tasked me to speak to the chairperson of SCOPA for us to have our follow-up meeting in November. I had discussions with Honourable Zibi, and we've had a look at what we would want to put on the agenda, and we will share that information with you, but it will be scheduled for the fourth term. I also wanted to say that we are in receipt of a letter that has been sent to the Minister of Public Works from the Speaker, and she's raising the issues that we raised in our oversight at the offices of our department. She's highlighting the issues that we raised, and she's asking for a response from the Minister of Public Works. So there is movement in terms of that work, that oversight work that we did, and I will ask Ms. Silly to share that letter with you. Colleagues, just a reminder then that next week we've got 2 meetings. We are meeting with our own department on Tuesday, and on Friday you've received an invitation to join the Basic Education Portfolio Committee as they do a follow-up on the statutory rape inquiry. That is all for now, colleagues. I thank you very much again. You have to get yourself ready for the National Assembly at 2 o'clock. And thank you very much again to the CGE. This meeting then, now, colleagues, is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Long live the chair.
Thank you. Long live the whip.
Bye-bye.
Bye, and thank you, the
Bye-bye.
chairman, everyone.
Bye-bye.